Hey, you guys. Let me know if you can hear me. Hopefully everything is on. Let's see who's in here. Felisa, Salty Sleuth. Yes. Yeah, I actually have like a strong, just opinion on this, and I'm just going to lay it out here in a second. Hey, Danny, Alec. Oh, gotta work. That's great. You can tell me what you think afterwards. Pindizzy, Maria. Hey, Dawn. Yeah. I almost feel like, I mean, I know that the MPD did a lot wrong, right? They did a lot. They did a lot. But I'm almost kind of wondering if it's because they were just following the instructions of the people that knew better and they just didn't know better, because that can happen too. So who knows? I don't know. It just, after going back and listening to Payne again, because I took two separate, this is the first round notes. And then I went back again and I was pulling up the documents. See, this is round 2. See, I was pulling up the documents as Masath was going through them. And I got about halfway through, well, almost to the end of what Payne was talking about. And then I was like, I can't just sit here do a summary with these. In order for it to make sense and we do it correctly, we're going to have to listen to what Masath is saying and pull up the documents in real time. As they're talking about this, and look at where it says certain things, look at the dates they're talking about. We're just going to have to do it the right way. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do that tonight. And I'm not going to go through the state stuff. Like I said in my comment, I'm going to go through my notes and see if the state said anything. I don't recall them in this one specifically saying anything worthwhile, honestly, but who knows? I might have missed something. You guys might have heard something that I didn't hear, which, by the way, I will point something out because it has come to my attention that the state has verified that Dylan was texting. There was text communication at the times that they have the timestamps for the crime in the PCA with the camera, the DoorDash, and all that stuff, right? Now, Jennings says this right after she then verifies that Dylan has not seen, has not that she hasn't seen, but that she didn't recognize the photo of Bryan. And I think that because we've talked so much on the channel already about the fact that we know damn well that the girls were texting each other, that the fact that we finally got clarification that Dylan was shown a photo of Bryan was the shocking information to us, because I didn't really trip out about hearing it. And I don't remember a lot of people in chat or anybody really saying anything either. So I feel like just the validation of knowing finally that we not only did Dylan see a picture of Bryan, but his facial structure, his eyebrows, it didn't match whatever she's claiming to have seen. So I think that was just the most striking thing. But it is one of the topics that I'm going to do a little separate video about whenever we do subtopics of this, because I know that a lot of people like the shorter versions of information, and there's so many different topics that now have new bits of info that we need to insert and rethink about. So we're going to do that, but we're going to treat this the same way. Hey, Willie, we're going to treat this the same way. And by the way, you guys, we're going to be going through the interview, the conversation that Willie had with, was it Rich? Rich is the other friend of Bryan Kohberger's that went on mainstream. And he ended up wanting to talk to Willie because not only do they both know Bryan, but he didn't appreciate the way that every time he tried to say something about Bryan, they were trying to steer him into being really negative, and the negative just wasn't a reality. So he wanted to come out and really talk about the truth about what he wasn't allowed to say. I shared it earlier in my community tab, but I feel like we really should go over it because it does need more attention. The more information that we get, the more that it feels like they really do have the wrong guy here. Like, there's just no ifs, ands, or buts. The more that they talk, the more they're proving that they have nothing. And the fact that it's stuff that the state is doing that is proving this the majority of the time is just, how are we where we are? I don't understand. So we really do, I guess, really do need to start focusing a little bit more like on that side of it. We really do. I do have questions. Yeah, I do have a lot of questions. Yeah, I mean, they grew up together. They're talking about the location and how it was, and knowing Bryan's parents and what they thought of them and all the things. And again, like, I'll, at the end of this live, I'll put a link for Willie's channel down there. It's like the first thing he ever did. It's literally the reason why he even created the channel, was so that him and the mutual friend he has with Bryan could have this conversation. That's like the only reason why he even made it. Yeah. And he'll even tell you, and he says it in this. I actually listened to it earlier today, Willie, when I was doing laundry. I had this on my TV. I was listening to the whole thing. And he will even say, like, he originally thought like guilty until the PCA came out and things were like, what? This doesn't make any sense. And now he's like, I know this guy and I feel like he's getting framed, and I need to try to be a little bit of his voice, since, you know, he's choosing to stand silent and do this crazy stuff. If I really feel like this, then I'm going to come out here and we're going to be truthful. So we're going to give that interview some definite attention. We're going to give that interview some attention after we're done going over this court stuff on another live. It definitely needs to be discussed. And the fact that mainstream doesn't care is wild too. Even to like get the history that they claim makes Bryan look bad, like, they still won't even try that. I don't know. It's just really just kind of gross. It does. And that's what I'm really worried about here. Because look how much of the information that the defense was not allowed to show at trial that wasn't even their information. It was stuff that was given to them by the prosecuting agency. And the people that gathered the information didn't even want that information. Like, why? It's your information, bro. Why do you want me to not present it to the judge? It's yours. Why? You know what I mean? Like, and that's where I'm like, I got issues here. I got so many issues here. But like I said, them like telling us in court, you know, finally that Dylan, there's text communications of her describing, apparently the way that I'm understanding it, and this is how this is how I'm relaying it in the video that I've already recorded about like that snippet. The way that Jennings is describing it when she's comparing it to the way that Ann Taylor discussed it was that she's in real time, like describing in text communication, the running up and down the stairs and possibly even the crying in the bathroom. That's how I'm understanding it. And I can't get, God dang, I can't say I hate it. I hate it because I hate how it makes me sound. Because I hate whenever people do this. But then I know why people do this, because you can't just come out and say certain things, because you're not allowed to like show certain things or say certain things. And you don't really know if certain things that you see are true. So you don't want to come out here and say something in case it's not true. But I'm just going to say now that this information is out here. Jesus Christ. I have screenshots, or I've seen screenshots at least, that are burnt images in my head, or what I am told to have been text messages between Dylan and Bethany. And I am only going to tell you that the verbiage used is very plural. That's as far as I'm going to go, which is why I've done videos about how they're not off the hook. There's more here. Somebody's lying. There was no reason for that 8-hour delay. I don't give a damn. There was more than just a slight possible awareness about what was going on being discussed in those text messages. There was definite awareness and no excuse. Like, down to the fact that they knew that lives were being taken. Okay, there's no excuse here. And again, that's just what I've been shown. And I don't have any proof that it's real, but now that this is out here and the state has finally said it, that's as far as I'm going to go with it. Because again, I don't know if it's true or not. I just know what I've seen, and the fact that it's kept me questioning this entire time, the 8-hour delay. And then we have Ethan's mom and other family members saying that they know for a fact that the girls heard something. It's just a lot. It's really a lot. especially whenever you hear Dylan doesn't recognize his bone structure, doesn't recognize those eyebrows. How are we where we are? And you know that the only thing that the Goncalveses are saying is that sentence that Hitler said about DNA at the crime scene or DNA on the knife sheath is probable cause, like all day and twice on Sunday or something like that. Which, I mean, I understand to a point the reason why maybe he would be saying, look, it's DNA. It's at a quadruple homicide scene. It's probable cause. And it might be probable cause for something, but probable cause for the dramatics? Probable cause for the insanity? Probable cause? You couldn't have just gone and like knocked on his parents' door and been like, hey, we need to talk to you. We need to interview you. You couldn't have just like let it be known that, like, why did you have to go crazy? Especially whenever you've got literally nothing. You've got literally nothing. It makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to start this. And as we're going, I'm going to pull up the documents. Now, there might be one of these in here. I feel like there was like one of these in here that maybe I don't have, or that maybe is part of the like sealed stuff that we're not allowed to see because Payne was giving page numbers that I don't recall having. But for the most part, we are going to pull up. Oh, is that that's not the right one. Is this the right one? We're going to pull up this and go over it with the documents. Hey, Jane. Thank you. That's very sweet. Thank you very much. But like I said, we're going to listen to her, and it's going to be at 1.25. That's how I've had it before. What's that? What do you think about Ashley's interview? Banfield? He lied that his lawyer told him whatever prosecution has. Is that like the recent one he did? Because I've seen that. I've at least seen like 2 thumbnails. And I've put off I have put off watching them on purpose because I'm trying to stick to what is going on in court right now because he wasn't there. And he made a big deal apparently in one of them. Oh, thank you, Moveale. Gifted 5 memberships. That's very sweet. That's very sweet. Thank you so much. That's awesome. You guys are great. So I haven't watched the whole thing. I just know that he told one of the news people that he wasted $5,000 because now they weren't going to be allowed into the room. But then whenever the media interested party thing happened last minute, they had posted like 6 minutes or so before that went live that they were on the way to Boise. And we're like, for what? You can't go in there. Well, then I did see a thumbnail of him doing an interview outside the courtroom. And I do feel for those of you that were here and we're actually in the live where we were going over the actual live, because as you know, it's gone from like the 8 hours and something minutes that it was down to just like the time that we were actually able to see. I cut out everything because there's no reason to have it there. But if you were there live, you saw that I was showing tweets from Drunk Turkey where he was given information about who was coming in and out and stuff that was going on. And the only person that he would have gotten that information from about who was coming in and out of that courtroom is from Steve and Christy. So they spent $5,000 of their donated money to not even be able to go inside the courtroom, to just be outside so they can be on camera and basically like hobnob with the community and be interviewed. That's really all that was. They were not allowed to know anything. They were watching it on links, on devices outside, just like the rest of us. So we did see Payne on his phone and his like texting thing on his watch quite a bit. I don't know who he could have been talking to, but honestly, insane. Okay, are you guys ready? We're gonna listen to them discuss the warrants and pull them up. Were they selling t-shirts? I've got no idea. Was she carrying a Louis bag at court? I mean, it's not like we know that they have money. We know that they had money before all this happened. So for her to have nice stuff, that doesn't really bother me. But that's what I don't understand either, Tiff. Like, what the hell did you spend $5,000 on? Like, there's people in the comments being like, I did like all of this for like months on end on $5,000. Like, what? what did you spend $5,000 on if you were supposed to just be there like 2 nights? Bro, like $5,000? Bougie as hell? Wild. All right, let's go ahead before I get too far ahead of that, because I'm really trying to separate what I have to say about that situation versus the facts here. So let's keep to this one, and then we'll talk about that at a later time. All right. Let me know if you can hear this good, because I can't really do much with the sound besides turn my microphone down, but I have it to where it's now going to be more leveled out so that it's not like too much, because I think the last time this was a lot lower than what I was, and it was like causing people to trip out a little bit. So hopefully now that's been fixed. Let me know. Okay.
What is your role in this case?
I was assigned lead detective in this particular investigation.
And so as lead detective, can you explain from your perspective what that has meant that you have done?
Certainly. So it was my responsibility to basically view this investigation from a 30,000-foot view, if you will. Directly, it's the teams that were assigned to various tasks, and then taking all that information, synthesize it, put it back out to our group, and then eventually consolidate it into an affidavit.
And in terms of that affidavit, yesterday there was some discussion and testimony about that and how it was created. Would you explain?
Okay, so I guess I'll just tell you exactly what I feel about this before we get to it, because I think I said I was going to do that in the first place. So this is how I feel. I feel like he can say that and he can get away with it. I feel like he can say that I don't know and that I don't remember because he honestly has no idea. That's how I feel. Because what is completely implied in this? That all of the information that he got from Balance and like one other Fed. Like I have the names written down in here, and of course we'll hear them as we'll go along. But basically he would get the information and he would pass it on to them. And then all that would happen is he would then get told the next step to take. And he even says himself that whenever stuff about Bryan's old email addresses and the Wi-Fi Army owns and the DeSales stuff or any of the stuff, whenever it came through, he didn't even look at it to even see if anything of it was validated, if there was any connection, if there was any matches, nothing. He would just send and forward it straight on to the Fed man. And then the Fed man would be like, all right, broski, this is what you got to do next. And this is what we're looking for. He didn't have the knowledge or the training or the education to know if anything was validated. And him coming out here and saying I was not trained, him coming out here and saying I'm not trained in this. I don't know. I got all my information from them. I didn't open anything. I didn't review anything. I sent it that way and then got told what to do. He's putting all the blame where the blame's supposed to be. And it's been on the Feds this entire time. Let's be for real. I mean, the only thing that I can really understand might be Moscow's problem, or where they sort of went wrong with it, was trying to maybe cover up the mistake by putting in the wrong timeline. Because again, we're not going to sit here and look past the facts that the timing of his phone going off network is off by 7 minutes. Whenever you're in a moving vehicle going either which direction, that 7 minutes is a wild amount of actual information. I don't understand how they're not more mad about this timeline being off. Thank you for the 149, Hoppy Master. Thank you. Oh, thank you for the gifted membership, Mikey. I was going off on a rant. So I missed it, guys. I'm sorry. But this case gets on my damn nerves, because every time we have something happen, I'm like, damn, are we really going to get something? Are we finally going to get something that makes any sense? And then all we do is get more stuff that just makes me more angry. Let's get more angry. None of it makes any sense. Hey, Southern Sass. How you doing? 14 months. It's a long time. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome. I always say your name a certain way in my head, but I don't know if that's how it's supposed to be said. Joaquinian? Joaquinian? That's how I always say it in my head. See, the IgG stuff makes sense to me. I mean, it makes enough sense to me for me to know that there's something that doesn't add up here whenever professionals are doing something like in real life that is hella impressive and they are finding nothing, and then suddenly a federal agency that we know is shady as shit and loves to lie and cover things up suddenly comes up with an answer and then literally nothing connects to it. I mean, they don't have a great track record. Yeah, thank you, MotoMax. Thanks for the $2. Yeah, they really did indict a ham sandwich. They did. Like, honestly. And I'm like, people, I didn't even know that before, like what that was. I don't ever pay attention to like grand jury stuff or like legal terms like that. But they for real like did. But how is what I don't understand, because we're having this fight for apparently the grand jury subpoenas still, the grand jury subpoenas, which is interesting that the state even brought that up because the defense didn't. The defense didn't even bring it up once. And she's like, well, I guess yeah, they didn't talk about it, but let's talk about it now. For what? For what? I mean, we think that they should be given that information because now they're the ones who are working this case. So why not give them to them? Especially since apparently the federal grand jury failed, right? Because he ended up being indicted by a state of Idaho grand jury, like a state grand jury. Federal failed. And what did Logsdon say? That at least 6 of the grand jury members for the state grand jury said, oh, yeah, we need more information. That's not like going to work. And somehow we're still here. 5 months. That's awesome, Mikey. Yeah, and you know what? I'm going to tell y'all. Like, I'm going to tell y'all again. There's going to be people that will subscribe for that 10 minutes just so they can come in here and be stupid. If they come in here and be stupid, then y'all just let them be stupid, because we go off of facts and things that are actually factually for real in this case, not made up fantasy. So if they feel the need to come in here, make them prove it. If they want to come in here with some crazy stuff, like some of them have, make them prove it. We know better. If I'm not going to let them get my blood pressure up, y'all shouldn't either. So just school them and they will run away, because usually once you prove that they have nothing else to say because they have a script, and once they have to deviate, they get lost. All right, let's go.
Explain that.
Absolutely. So the information was brought to us via various teams and specialists in their particular areas. For instance, most of the cell phone stuff was covered by Special Agent Balance from the FBI. All that information was brought to the team, relayed back out at least twice a day. And then as that information was essentially synthesized, it was put into a running document, a living document that is now known as Exhibit A.
So when it was characterized yesterday as a group effort, do you agree with that characterization of it?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you know approximately how many warrants you worked on in this case?
I don't, ma'am. Several. I don't know the exact number.
Right. I'm going to walk you through several segments of different warrants, and some of this may seem choppy, but I'm going to try to do you and then Detective Mowery at once instead of bringing you back and forth. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am. Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you for joining Scott and Kelly Witherall. So we're going to get to the documents now. She's about to start off with, like, I believe, the first AT&T warrant from 12/23. And it's interesting the timing on this one, because so this is what she's going to say. She's going to say that they served it at 10:03 in the morning, and at 3:31 p.m. it was returned. Well, that's like 5 hours. So it took 5 hours for AT&T to get all the information collected. And then this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He has no clue what he's talking about. So what does he do? He does exactly what he's instructed to do, and he sends it off to the federal guy to balance. And then at 4:53 p.m., they go ahead and they get the pin, trap, and trace. And again, the guy who's actually signing the warrant, the one who is sending the warrant in back to AT&T, has no education on what the hell he's talking about that he's asking for. He just knows what the federal people are telling him to do. And so it took, what is that? An hour and 20 minutes, an hour and 22-ish minutes from 3:31 to 4:53 for balance to do whatever he did in order to make him believe that the next step was needed. But he's not the one signing the warrant. The person understanding the information is not signing the warrant. A man with no education in this whatsoever is signing the warrant based off of instruction from someone who should know more. So he's literally like a messenger, like a pawn. That's really what it is. Like, he really had no idea. He might have been titled the lead detective, but he's being like basically used, in my opinion, by the feds because he's got no idea. No idea. No clue.
And Judge, I have paper exhibits for you and for the witness. And so I'll go as fast as I can, but I want you to be able to look at what he's looking at. So we're going to begin with the first AT&T warrant. Prior to this case, had you ever secured an AT&T warrant?
No, ma'am. I don't believe I had.
And so
See, this part doesn't bother me because I feel like there's like a format to just warrants in general, like filing warrants in general, and like you kind of learn as you go. So I think just like having training in a specific warrant, I think that's it's a little bit strange. I'm trying to get the warrant up real quick.
So given that, who did you rely on in creating the warrant? For
Largely
AT&T?
Special Agent Balance. Obviously, he's the CAS expert, so I relied heavily on his input.
At the time that AT&T Warrant 1 was secured, were you co-located with Special Agent Balance?
I believe so, yes.
Can you, well, in terms of being more specific, it was December 23rd. Were you two co-located at that time?
I believe so, yes.
And I know co-located has been talked about in court a couple of times, but can you just explain what it means for you two to be co-located since he's from DC?
Certainly. Yeah, he was in the same building as I was, just mere feet away from the command post.
Okay, so when you say mere feet away, were you guys in like a cubicle setting or were you in offices with doors? What was this setting in terms of proximity to each other a few feet away?
Yeah, separate offices with doors, but in the same second floor of the Moscow Police Department.
Are you aware of Special Agent Balance in his work in doing self AT&T records, having any access to AT&T records without a warrant?
I'm not aware of that, no.
Are you aware of him having any ability to review AT&T records through any portal without a warrant?
Not to my knowledge, no.
I'm going to begin with what is known as States Exhibit 1 attached to their objection to the motion to suppress AT&T warrant. And Judge, for today's purposes, what I'm doing is relying.
Okay. So something else you're going to see, and I think this is the one right here. Okay, this is the warrant that they're talking about that the public has when it comes to this first AT&T warrant. This is the stuff that was filed back on February 28th of 23, whenever Megan Marshall was signing for stuff to be sealed up until a certain date. And then it's not until you scroll down here that you get to the actual formatting of the warrant itself. Now, something that I was trying to figure out whenever we were watching this in real time was if this like extremely disorganized ass way that things are being handed to the court and submitted is the defense, or if this is what the state gave the defense and the defense was presenting it in the freaking discombobulated ass unorganized way that they got it from the state. I was curious. Then I listened to it again and realized that Masoth literally tells the judge that she did not relabel any of these documents in order for there not to cause further confusion to the court, meaning that all of these hella wrong labeled, mislabeled, missing labeled, all of this disorganized boo-boo is literally the way that the state gave the discovery to the defense. And now the judge is telling Masoth, as you will see, that he wants her to create a list of all the documents and what they are supposed to be actually called and in what order, even though it's the state that gave them over this disorganized. Isn't that some bullshit? Isn't that some bullshit? So this is the one that they're going to be going over. And it says right here that this was obtained at 12/23 of 22. Now what's crazy is that right here it says that it was served by email, and then it says fax email in like parentheses, but whenever he gets asked like which way it actually was submitted, whether it was like by fax or email or like through a portal or whatever, he actually says he doesn't remember, which is like, come on, bro. I know that you might not remember like certain things like that, but come on. This is the record in which it was given to us by the state. So in order for it not to be more confusing, we're going to leave it as screwed up as it is because it's already confusing enough. Right? That's what it sounds like.
And now I've got to get,
Objection to the admission of that for today's hearing.
Judge, I should have started out by saying that the same stipulation regarding the admission of all exhibits applies today.
But we do need the formality of moving for the admission, however. So that's why.
I can do that. Do you want me to do that per exhibit?
Well, it makes, if you, as you're talking about them, it probably makes sense.
Okay, I've got to get myself S1.
I know, right? Crazy.
Okay, Detective Payne, can you look at page 5?
Ma'am?
Can we talk about how like not happy this mofo looks all the time? Like he looks like he is just like face palming both sides. Like he doesn't care about nothing that's being talked about. Like he actually asks really good questions. He does. But I also feel like a lot of time he's like leading the state to make the state's case more. Like a lot, especially when it came to the stuff about Dylan, because like again, I get the reason why the defense wants to try to like make it to where Dylan's stuff is like inadmissible regardless because she's intoxicated or whatever, and in her own statement she's stating that she doesn't remember and it feels, or it could feel like a dream and she's not sure. I understand that, but we go back to Dylan didn't recognize Bryan. That's what I go back to. But what I don't understand is why, whenever he was then asking the state what was the reason for even putting Dylan's statement in the PCA, she went to talk about how it was for identity purposes, but Dylan is not identifying Bryan as the guy. Like she just said that right before this. And instead of just like letting her lead and not inputting more information for the state, the judge then goes, and what about timeline? And she's like, oh, well, yeah, timeline too. And that's how we find out about the text message communications being verified. And I'm like, he's helping her. That's how it felt to me. Like he was helping her. I'm just saying. Again, I could be biased on that. I will say I could be biased on that because I don't like Jennings. But I feel like the judge was helping the state a lot. A lot.
On page 5, can you read what it says in the at the very end of the page in the sentence above wherefore that begins with the paragraph? It begins in support. Can you read that paragraph?
Certainly. In support of the assertion as to the existence of probable cause, the following facts are offered based upon personal knowledge of affiant. See attached statement of Brett Payne, which is marked Exhibit A and incorporated as though fully set forth herein.
And is that S1 the affidavit in support of the search warrant?
Yes, it is.
And that's the AT&T 1 search warrant.
I have to do something with my youngest real quick. Give me like a second. Okay.
It was the first one served on December 23rd, correct?
That's correct.
And that language that you put in there, Exhibit A, is incorporated as though fully set forth herein. Is that the language you just read?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. I'm now going to hand you State's Exhibit 2 to the AT&T first warrant. Can you review that first page, the first paragraph?
Of S2.
Pardon?
Are you seeking the admission of S2?
I am seeking the admission of S2. Just to be clear, Judge, all of these that I'm putting before him and the ones that are attached, we're seeking the admission of.
Objection to S2? All right, submitted.
Have you reviewed that, Detective Payne? Do you see that the language that I just referred to in the search warrant affidavit, do you see that same language in this warrant in where you incorporate the affidavit, incorporate Exhibit A into your, you see that language
Ma'am.
in S2? And is S2 the actual search warrant for AT&T?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Can you turn to the last page on page 4? What time was the warrant served?
10:03 a.m.
Do you recall that the return on that warrant came in at 3:30 that day?
That would sound correct. I don't remember specifically.
Would it help if I showed you the AT&T mobility propriety?
Was freaking muted. Okay. This is the 1003 that they're talking about. This is the first warrant that they pulled for Bryan Kohberger's information, because the other AT&T one for this was like a geofenced one, and he didn't show up on this one. He didn't show up on like the geofencing warrant. His phone number, his information, it didn't show up that he was even in the area. So right then off the bat, they had information that didn't lead to him even being there, and somehow they still were able to do the second one. You know what I mean? Like, that's wild enough as it is. So I'm trying to see where it says that he had something attached to it. And I'm not really seeing that. Corporal Rhett Payne, the officer by whom this warrant was executed, do certify the appended inventory contains a true and detailed account of all property taken by me or other officers pursuant to this warrant, and that this warrant and property have been duly returned. Yeah. Okay. So that's whenever they gave it over to them. But it was, again, obtained on 12/23/22. And the information, I guess what we don't get is the return information. So we don't have a document for the 3/31 return information. That's what we don't have for that one. Okay, I'm going to let her continue talking.
Judge, I'm not seeking the admission of this, just for purposes of him being able to be certain. Sorry.
The witness may be shown the document to refresh his recollection.
Yes, Your Honor.
So I think he actually like sent it via email. So he says he doesn't know, he doesn't remember, but it was via email. It says right here, and it says that Detective Mowery is the one who actually ended up getting the inventory return, but this says at 10:28. that it was sent over. That's a little bit different. So that says December 23rd at approximately 10:28, Lawrence Mowery served the warrant. So I think this is the one where she's going to even say, why does it say Lawrence Mowery right there whenever you're the one who actually did it? But that timing is off. Because this says at 10:28. And the bottom of this, with Brett Payne's information, with what he actually sent over to them, is 10:03. See? So why is the 10:28 one in here with Mowery's information on it? It's almost like they got different warrants served and got the paperwork mixed up for what goes with what. Okay.
Already in Frank's D17, page 634. Detective, can you see on that that came in at, I think it's 15:30? It's
15:31.
okay. Thank you.
See, I just showed y'all, there's nothing on here that says anything about 3:31 for about whenever anything came back. But she also doesn't talk about the 10:28 time. I'm just going to let her keep talking. Maybe I'm thinking too much into it.
I'm now handing you Defense Exhibit A to the reply to the AT&T suppression motion.
This doesn't have a sticker on it?
Pardon?
This does not appear to have a sticker on it.
No, it does not, but it is attached to the reply as Exhibit A, AT&T. And that reply is, okay. Can you see line 4 there? Oh, sorry, Judge.
Copy and put, let's just, do you have a number that we were going to call this?
I would call it Exhibit A to reply, because that's what it is in the record. You see at the bottom of the page where it says Exhibit A, AT&T?
So this is the return of the warrant of S2?
Yes.
All right, let's call it S2.2. Or 2.1, pardon me.
That's fine.
The fact that it's associated with that particular warrant. Allowed to touch stickers under the union contract, so why don't you give it to the bailiff?
Detective Payne, on page 2 of that Exhibit A, it's actually just the front page where it says Affidavit of Brett Payne. What does paragraph 4 say?
Paragraph 4, line 4.
Line 4.
It says the warrant was served on 12/23/2022 by email, fax, etc.
So do you know exactly what method was used?
I don't remember.
Okay.
And see, the paperwork that says that Mowery is the one who did it, it actually says it was done by email. That's wild that they can have all these errors and it's just okay. Incompetence. Incompetence.
And it says warrant in that line, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Does it say anything about the affidavit in support of search warrant accompanying the warrant?
Oh, ma'am.
On the next page, the receipt and inventory of warrant, do you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you look at description of property? What does that say?
It says 509-592-8458.
Can you explain how that's a description of property and what that means?
It just means essentially that there was the information retrieved as a result of that phone number being queried with AT&T.
Yeah, but that means like everything for that phone number, right? Like super vague is because that was part of their argument. It was that a lot of these were really vague. I felt like they were pretty specific because they are asking for like specific phone numbers and specific information. But I guess if they are trying to look for even more specifics, because you do have to narrow it down like as narrow as you possibly can, them just asking for anything associated with that phone number is way too vague. And I guess the way that the law like defines it.
And it indicates that that was produced how?
Entrance was obtained by email.
And when that was received, did you do anything to verify that the data was within the date ranges of November 12th to November 14th of 2022?
I don't remember. That information was provided to Special Agent Balance as soon as it was received.
Do you have?
See, he would be the one to request the information. He was told by Balance what to request. Then he would sign the paperwork, send it off, be the one to get it, but then not open it, not review it, not see if it was even the right stuff, and then send it off. And then be told what the next step was without even reviewing what was happening. The fact that this is how this is like normal, this is normal. And this is why I've asked, like, since the beginning, the judges that sign these warrants, do they not have to like double check and verify that the information in these PCAs that they're asked to sign off on, are they not like supposed to be like, okay, well, show me the video. Okay, well, show me the car. Okay, well, show me the DNA information that you got from this. Show me the knife sheath photo. Show me this. Or do they just literally read it and be like, sounds all right? Because it sounds like there's like no double checking at all. I mean, but that's the thing though. Like, doesn't it sound like this kind of incompetence is rampant? And the only reason why so many people are throwing a fit about it now is because we have the internet and now we can all see it in real time. Like, this is insane. This kind of stuff happens literally everywhere, not just in this case. Well, what's interesting to me is that Fry tried to use the investigation as like something to run for, what was it, like sheriff or whatever he was running for that he failed to get, right? Like he didn't win, right? I don't think he won. Like I could be talking shit for nothing, but I honestly don't even care. He was trying to use the investigation as like something to like stand on. And I'm like, you didn't do nothing, bro. Like somebody handed you a family tree and gave you a name, and then your people like didn't even input the information correctly or even know what to do. Like you basically were just puppets. Like you did what you were told because you didn't have the know-how. Like that's why a lot of times I'm like, is it really like purposeful? Like obviously there's something purposeful that starts it. But then the stuff that happens after that one domino, like so many people can be doing so many shitty things and not even realize that it's shitty because they think that it's legit evidence and they think it's like, they think it's the facts because they haven't been told the truth. You know what I mean? It's just insane. It's just absolutely insane. Hey, Allie Books. Hey. It's just all wild. It's scary, right? Okay.
When you say that it was provided to Special Agent Balance, is that because you don't have the capacity, technical skills, I guess, to review that raw data and do something with it?
Yes, ma'am.
You mean you passed it on because you're too stupid to know what you're looking at? Yeah. Sorry, Payne. I might look, and this is another thing. Like I've been a lot of people, they want to like point it at MPD, but it literally could be that the entire Moscow Police Department is going based off of what they were told by the feds. And that's the reason why the feds have nothing to produce. They don't have nothing they can really show. The original DNA profile was deleted. And you know, I think I mentioned something in the chat that whenever we were watching this, I saw, what's her face? What's the Garrett Report crazy lady's name? Forensic Frenzy. She had a thumbnail on one of her videos saying something about how Kohberger said the feds wouldn't show. I hate that name. Like, you got to be some sort of 15-year-old mindset to keep using that term, but whatever, that's neither here nor there. But I don't remember anybody ever, even people questioning stuff and having questions, ever saying that the feds just were not going to show up and testify. We said they didn't have nothing to show whenever they testified. And that's on their own accord. That's their own words. That's the state. The state has been getting in trouble the entire time based on the fact that the feds have not been able to produce anything that proves the storyline that they fed them to follow. This is the truth. So while the state should know better, and they should be asking all of the same questions that the defense is asking when it comes to, but where's this at? And how did you come to this conclusion? And where's the proof for this? Because they're the ones still prosecuting the case. But in the end, it is the feds. It's been the feds this entire time that I'm like, this all goes back to the FBI not wanting to produce their work and getting used to just doing whatever they want to do, whatever they want to do, and they get away with it. They've been getting away with it with all kinds of stuff. Look how many people have been self-deleted, and they aren't really self-deleted. The feds are just really, really good at faking it. Okay? They're not really good anymore because, 9 times out of 10, we can smell them from like 5 miles away.
Was there anybody else that you relied on for that other than Special Agent Balance?
Not that memory brings to mind.
Okay. Let's now turn to the AT&T 2 pen trap and also known as pen trap and trace. Can you explain what a pen trap and trace is?
So pen register, best of my knowledge now, granted, I am, as I've stated before, I'm not an expert in cell phone stuff, but best of my knowledge, a pen register tracks.
And he is going to make sure that he says how uneducated and how much of this that he doesn't know as much as he can, which is probably the best thing that he could do, because if that really is the honest truth, then let it be the truth so that we can figure out what needs to be eliminated here when it comes to what's true and factual information. Because again, if he's getting all these extra warrants, like he's going to say, you could not get this pin, trap, and trace without this first AT&T warrant, where he is taking the steps to sign off on that without validating or having the knowledge to validate that there was true and factual information that led to, now we can do the second one. He's literally going off of what he's been told, risking his entire career, honestly, because he can't validate any of it. That's just the nuts to be okay with that. That's insane.
Incoming and outgoing phone calls, text messages, so on and so forth. And then the trap and trace is the portion that essentially gives you location data, or the precision location data rather. So it's essentially incoming and outgoing calls, what messages are received, and then part of that was where that phone was located when it was doing it. Was it required that you secure the AT&T first warrant to obtain the second warrant that included a pin, trap, and trace? I don't believe it was required.
So,
wait, did he just say, I don't believe it was required? Did I actually mishear that the first time? Because I could have sworn he said it was required. Let's check.
Was it required that you secure the AT&T first warrant to obtain the second warrant that included a pin, trap, and trace?
I don't believe it was required.
I don't believe it was required. Huh. Okay. Well, that takes away a little bit of responsibility, a little bit, because if getting it first was not a requirement, then yeah, it wouldn't. That takes away some responsibility, because I was like, okay, but if you have to have that first one, that makes a huge difference. Okay, that takes away some of that. I did mishear that the first time. It's not required. So why not just do that in the first place? Okay. See, I'm glad we go back over stuff.
So when the data was received on at 3:30, you gave that data was given to Special Agent Balance?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then what happened in between 3:30 and 4:53 when the second warrant was secured?
Are you talking technically speaking, or can I speak in generalities? Because that's all I really know.
Well, I want you to talk about what you know.
So the only thing I know is that that information was provided to Special Agent Balance. He utilized whatever tools he has at his disposal.
This is something that we're going to get into whenever the video of me doing the comparisons of the two PCAs comes out. It's the big point, the giant point in this about the about the who saw the sheath and what. Simply Solo said, why won't neither Payne nor Blaker take credit for who found the placed sheath first? And we say placed because the defense team is asked, basically, how did it get placed there? They haven't denied, as far as anything that I have heard, that it's Bryan's DNA. They just want to know how it got where they're claiming it got. That's how I've understood their argument this entire time. But I've questioned that because in both the PCAs, it is different. Because if they're walking the house together and they both got to the house at the exact same time at 4 o'clock, and at that 4 o'clock hour, whenever they get there, if ISP, who is doing crime scene pickup, if they're going in or if they are just preparing to begin the crime scene, like evidence collection at 4 p.m. and they're walking the house at the same time that both Payne and Blaker are walking through, I don't know why in the world they would have two different recollections. One of them is wording it as if he sees it himself as he's there, and the other one is basically saying that he didn't see it but was told about it after the fact. And I don't know how that's possible. I mean, it could be, but I don't know why, if everything else in the PCAs is as if they're doing it step by step together until we get to like that part. That's an issue for me. It really is a huge issue for me. $49.99. Thank you so much, Lisa. I wish I could see the thing. I can't stand that they don't let me see that. I'm going to email StreamYard and tell them that they are taking away from the experience of letting me see, like, if there's any artwork connected to these stickers. They've been integrated with YouTube for thousands of years at this point. You think that they would have fixed that? That's very, very sweet. Thank you so much. That's insane. $49.99. That's wild. That's so much. Thank you so much. Okay. I'm trying to keep my blood pressure down because this is insane.
And then it was decided upon to go after the second pin trap and trace.
When did you start drafting that second trap and trace?
I don't remember.
So on that day, you did one in the morning that was secured at 10:03.
Yes, ma'am.
And then the second one was secured at 4:53 p.m. And you don't have a recollection of when you were working on those?
I don't remember. No.
All right. I think you have States Exhibit 2 in front of you.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you flip back to that one? Can you see on page 1, what does it say that the time of that warrant was obtained?
I know States Exhibit 2. Oh, 10:03 is what it says. Is that what you're referring to?
No, I'm referring to the return, which should be in, I might be referring you to the wrong exhibit.
1, I believe.
That 10:03 one was the first AT&T warrant. See, and I'm trying to see where that's, if we have access to this other one that she's talking about, because I don't honestly feel like we do. So, I mean, like, you guys can look with me real quick because I don't see it. I don't see it. So we know that, like, this one right here is the first one that came out that they did the geofencing one for. So we already know that that one's irrelevant. This is the second one that mentions AT&T. And this is the one, that's the first AT&T warrant. That's the one at 10:03. This is the one that she's talking about at 10:03. But then there's just a bunch more of these right here. And we don't have anything else for AT&T. As you can see, like, this AT&T right here is attorneys. Like, I have it in here. I have it in here. And it's not showing me anything else until we get down here. And I don't know if this is it right here that she's talking about. This might be the one right here. But this is their entire, oh, wait a second. Maybe this is it. Okay, let me let her talk while I take a look at this and see if we might actually have this one, because I don't think this is it, but let me see.
And that was at 4:53. The second warrant was obtained at 4:53. I might not have handed you pin trap.
I don't think I have that one.
Yeah, my understanding.
No, this isn't it either, because this one goes for a warrant for AT&T that is obtained on March 30th of 2023, which is months after this. So it doesn't look like we actually have anything when it comes to the original pin, trap, and trace. At least that's what it seems like. So that's the one. Okay, and then we have the these attachment ones don't have anything to do with that. That's attachment stuff. Attachment. Venue change. Okay. Then this is their motion to suppress the AT&T warrant information. And we know that they had exhibits handed in by hand for these on a certain date. So I don't know if maybe she's going to be reading information from this one. But then there's also, this is the actual pin, trap, and trace device suppression paperwork. But again, I don't understand, like, why are we not allowed to see? Why are we not allowed to see the physical one for this? Because this is just them like reiterating things and then like fighting their argument. And the attachment for this is suppressed or sealed. So does anybody, now that I'm looking over at the chat thing, does anybody know why they would not want us to see the original pin, trap, and trace warrant? Like, they're bringing it to court, but I mean, I could be missing it. But I'm showing you guys like the list of documents here for this. And as far as I know, like, this is another one about AT&T. The AT&T first warrant. As far as I know, I'm not seeing anything that shows us the original pin, trap, and trace device warrant. Does anybody know anything different? Because I'm not seeing that. So she's talking about a document that I can't share with you. Because for some reason we have not been allowed to see the original pin, trap, and trace warrant. It's a sealed attachment. That's a bit odd.
So the affidavit for warrant, the warrant, and the return of the warrant all related to the first warrant to AT&T. And we haven't got the pin, trap, and trace warrant presented yet, I don't think.
Right, I've got it here.
Okay, so they hadn't had it presented either? And she has a copy of it? Are we going to finally get to see it then? Okay, let's just continue.
And Judge, for clarification purposes too, today as we're going through testimony, my plan was not to go through every single warrant that we're arguing about and get it in front of the court. I'm really trying to take kind of a scalpel approach on the issues that we want to point out to the court. So it does really feel like I'm jumping around, and I realize that. I hope to bring it all together in the end.
The only caveat being what I've told you before is where you have is a broad array of.
Can I take that much magnesium? I don't think I can, because I'm also on blood pressure medication. So I already know that magnesium has an effect on blood pressure. So that's why I only take one, like right before bed, because I'm scared that I don't want my blood pressure to go down more. They already had to raise my blood pressure pill from 20 to 30. So I'm scared to like take more magnesium. So I just take the one. Yeah, I don't want to do more than that. I'm good with the one.
Of documentation that you've presented. The court will not scour the record to find support for your motions that's not pointed out to the court specifically. And that's well established with case law in the Idaho Supreme Court.
And Judge, that's why I am.
Okay, for one, you heard how he's like getting onto her, right? As they've said, they have not gone in and relabeled these documents. These documents are being handed to the court the way that the state did, and he's getting onto her about it. Which I still feel like this is an unnecessary like scouring or scalding or whatever you want to call it where he's like going off on her, I feel like, for no reason, because she is being very careful and handing him every exhibit that she's talking about, telling him what page to go on, telling Payne exactly down to the sentence what to read. So I don't know why he's feeling the need to even say this to her right now. Like, I feel like he's just being rude. Okay, where are you at, fake Mowery? I just saw your name on here and it gave me a date for something. So I'm going to go see if that's the document that I'm looking for. I just saw it. Where'd it go? 1219, reply to PA's objection. Okay. Well, I mean, that's the one that I was on. At least, yeah, reply to PA's objection. What page? That's December 23rd. Okay, that's the phone number. Oh, well, I guess you're right. Yep. Fake Mowery was right. It has to be fake Mowery because real Mowery is under gag order. So yeah, he was right. This would be the right one, I think, because it's specific to that. And what's the information down here? I guess that's it right there. It's all unredacted. That might be it. Served to AT&T. But this is Payne's signature again. The other one I think doesn't have this information right here where it says concept at AT&T.com. I guess that's like our comp center at AT&T.com. Let's see how much different that one looks to the first one. Go back up. This is the first AT&T warrant. I just want to compare this part because if it's identical, then it's probably not the same. I mean, it probably is the exact same thing. That looks pretty identical, including where the B starts off right above the C, the way the 157 is. Like, they pretty much look the same, so I don't know if this is it or not. See? One of them is just like maybe a better copy, a better photocopy. But I don't know if this is it. No, this looks like it's the exact same. 10:28 a.m. Yeah, see, it's the exact same one. This isn't it. This is not the pin, trap, and trace one. This is the exact same. Okay, so yeah. Okay, continue to listen.
I'm trying to grab the pieces and parts that I want you to be able to identify, and that's why I'm putting the paper in front of you. So I'm hearing you.
Thank you, Pippi498. They said, thank you for doing this. The guilters are having a field day. Most have zero critical thinking skills. The story just doesn't make sense right now. It really doesn't. It really doesn't. And I don't know how you can hear all of this. I don't know how you got like at least a year into the arrest and didn't start having massive amounts of questions. Like, I mean, I understand a lot of people really not wanting to go so far as to be so outspoken about their opinion on the possibility that they do have the wrong guy here because of how sensitive the subject is. But that's why so much of this just gets like right under the rug. Right under the rug. More people have to just speak out about how they really feel about stuff, or else things are just going to continue to be as shitty as they've always been. I mean, it's just that simple. Just that simple.
You when you've asked us to do that. All right, I'm handing you States Exhibit 1.
Is Jeff really in here going strong still? Like, I saw y'all commenting that he was in here. But I honestly, like, Jeff is never gonna, like, not just come in here stirring up stuff. But then again, sometimes he does make good points. So as long as he's being, you know, same old Jeffo, y'all just be nice. We're all adults. Jeff H. If you can't see him, he probably has you blocked. But he comes in here. He's a big old guilter. I know, Jeff. Just be nice, broski. Just be nice. Y'all be nice. We're all adults. It's okay.
And this is to the second AT&T warrant, also known as Penn Trap and Trace.
This one is also listed as S1 on the sticker. So that's going to cause some problem, I suppose.
It's S1 attached to a different motion to suppress.
That constant grin on her face, it always kind of like cracks me up. Because it's just constant. Like no matter what he says to her, even though I'm like, I would not be able to deal with him talking to me like that. Like, there was no way he'd be talking to me like that. She just keeps this little grin on her face. I think it's funny.
Well, hopefully we can figure it out when we're looking at the entire record. But
Yeah. And what I think, Judge, when you are going back and working with your clerk,
my concern, frankly, I know what all the documents are and what they relate to.
Yeah.
My concern is a reviewing court's ability to understand what you're talking about in court today and trace it to a stack of documents. That's my concern for this. So.
and I understand that. And so in preparation for today, I mean, I really did think, do I need to go through and relabel all of these? And I thought that would create more confusion in the record because these are all attached to specific motions with these labels.
See, she didn't want to go in and relabel them from how they already were because they were already part of the record from how they got it from the state. A mess, disorganized. I don't understand. Why wouldn't they want to make sure that everything that they were getting was as organized as possible so that they could make sure that they were understanding the data accurately? You're not going to be able to really understand what's going on and what you're seeing if it's just coming to you as a ginormous jumbled mess. I don't understand. I don't understand why they didn't put it on themselves to make sure that all of this was in perfect chronological order, color coded, A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3. Like, why would they want to present this like this? No, like, self-respect. No respect for the law. No respect for decency. No respect for justice. You don't even care to put it in order. It's just gross. It makes me sick.
This is marked S1, titled Affidavit for Search Warrant and Application for an Order for Pen Register or a Trap and Trace Device.
Yes.
So on the record, what we're looking at.
So Detective Payne, is that the warrant that, that affidavit in support of the search warrant that you drafted for that second AT&T warrant?
Yes, ma'am.
On page 11, at the bottom of the page, can you read that last sentence under probable cause?
Certainly. In support of the assertion as to the existence of probable cause, the following facts are offered based upon personal knowledge of the affiant. See attached statement of Brett Payne, which is marked Exhibit A and incorporated as the fully set forth herein.
All right, I am now handing you S2, which is the search warrant and order authorizing installation and or use of pen register trap and trace device and non-disclosure order pursuant to Idaho Code 18-6772.
Yeah, see, this is a good point. Watch them. Watch the way that Jennings' face changes, the way that Santa's behavior is, the way that he holds his head certain ways when certain things are said. As the way that this is completely disorganized gets talked about, you can tell that they are feeling guilty about it, or they know that they are responsible for it by the way that they wiggle in their chairs, the way that they move around. They know damn well that the defense is getting blame for their disorganization. And for some, that might not be a big deal, but to me, that's a big deal. To me, that's a big deal.
Can you please turn to page 7? Can you see what time that was obtained?
4:53 p.m.
I'm now handing you what is titled Return of Search Warrant, Exhibit A to Trap and Trace.
Does that have a sticker on it?
Pardon?
Does that have a sticker on it?
No, it does not.
It's 2.2.
What do you call that, Judge?
S-2.2,
S-2.2.
further delineated by the title, which is related to the pen trap and trace.
On page, can you look at page 2? You see the top, what does it say? It's the affidavit of.
Corporal Brett Payne.
Are you looking at Exhibit A, page 2?
Oh, correction. I see what you mean. Affidavit of Lawrence Mowery is what it says at the top.
Right, and then, but is that actually your
It is. Yes, ma'am.
affidavit? Okay, so that was a mistake.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, what were you looking at?
On page 2, the top of it says affidavit of Lawrence Mowery.
Oh, gotcha.
It's the affidavit of Corporal Payne.
A heading problem there.
So that's for the pin trap, right? They haven't changed it as far as I can tell. So yeah, it's almost like they grabbed the wrong paper because they're probably working on the same stuff, right? But it's almost like they couldn't keep their paperwork in order. Like that's how disorganized they are. Like that another warrant's paper like slipped in between and he didn't notice his mistake and he just continued with it. Like it's so hard to tell like if it's like purposeful stupidity. I don't like it's really difficult for me to imagine that so many people at the same time can be dumb. I guess that's where I'm getting at it. But I guess it's possible because damn. Like there's multiple mistakes. More than one. And they all compound each other. And that's like, I think that's what is the most difficult for me to believe, even though I know how much bullshit it is. But it's like, damn, are they really all just this incompetent collectively all together to not notice all these things? I mean, damn, I guess so, bro. I mean, but it's not even a good copy and paste because their copy and paste has errors in the copy and paste. I mean, that's why I'm doing like, it's going to be such a freaking long video. That's why I'm not doing it live because we will literally be here for like 8 hours. The comparison of the two PCAs. There's so much information, but there's also so much that looks like it would be copy and pasted because there's so many mistakes that are copy and pasted, but then there's other information that makes it even more confusing about whose was even the first one. Because like the tenses in them switch up. It's the weirdest crap. It is awkward to read these things simultaneously because it really does feel like it's a strain. You'll see.
I'm now handing you Exhibit C to the reply to Trap and Trace. It does not have a sticker. And it says AT&T Mobility Carrier Request Form.
This again relates to the trap and trace warrant.
It does.
Let's mark that S2.3. In the next day or so, if you would provide a formal identification list, if you will, of the exhibits that you'd stipulated to admission to yesterday, as I don't think we went through those individually, just so that there's a record of that.
We can do that.
He wants her to do the work to get everything organized, even though the state's the one that had it disorganized. Because, I mean, obviously it has to be organized for the court, but the stuff that was presented, whether it be in the closed portions or the public portions. It's all being presented the way that the state presented it. So why are they the ones having to fix it?
Might take us a couple of days, but we can do that. Can you look at, are you looking at that Exhibit C, Detective? Was cell site location data requested for this warrant on this page?
Yes, ma'am.
And was a timing advance report requested on this page? I'll refer you to the last paragraph where it says remark special instructions.
Yes, ma'am.
And do you see any reference in this document indicating that the affidavit in support of search warrant was included with the warrant?
No, ma'am.
And it's going to be like that for all of them. Like the actual, like, protocols for what's supposed to be attached to things are not being done. And he says in here that that's how he's always done it. Without the attachments that are apparently supposed to be there. That's how he was trained. And the feds ain't telling him any different. They're not telling him, hey, make sure that this, that, and the third is attached to this, or else this is going to make this information all null and void, or we might have issues in court if we don't have certain things attached to these documents. It all has to follow protocol. Nobody's checking anybody's anything, it seems. They're literally just trusting the other person to just know their job and not double checking to make sure that any of it's right. And that's going for both MPD and the feds. That's how I'm seeing it.
Okay, the next warrant I want to talk about is Apple.
This Apple stuff is interesting. I'm going to tell you why right now so that y'all know what we're going to be listening for, okay? Apple stuff is interesting. The way that Payne describes the first time that they became aware that there was any sort of Apple product involved in this investigation was after the arrest warrant, after everything got started in Pennsylvania, and not until after they broke into Bryan Kohberger's parents' house to arrest him. It wasn't until after they saw the iPad in the shared space that they knew that there was an Apple product involved in this investigation. And then they go back and they mention the receipt that was found in Bryan Kohberger's car that was for an Apple iPad from 2008. And now the account associated apparently with Bryan Kohberger has been open since 2016. And if I remember correctly, and you guys that know like the backtracking information of this, Jeff, I'm sure you know the answer to this. The car that Bryan Kohberger had at the time that this happened was his mother's prior to being his, correct? Meaning that in 2018, his mother would have been the owner of that vehicle. Therefore, if that's true, and I'm waiting for somebody to say if I'm wrong or right, but I believe that's the case. I could be wrong. But if that's the case, that would have been her receipt, regardless. But if that is the case, then there being a letter dated 12/21, which is 2 days prior to the AT&T first warrant on 12/23. It was? See? So, meaning in 2018, the receipt would have been something that was probably bought by his mom and just left in the car. And it was probably just like in the very bottom of like probably what they call it, the glove box. That's probably what we're going to hear. That's the glove box. Now I'm going to verify that because I know that the Carfax information's out there. So I'm going to verify that myself whenever we do like these smaller topic specific videos on this stuff. But if it really was his mom's car back in 2018, that's probably just something that was her receipt, and it was probably in the bottom of the glove box where all the other paperwork is, where your registration and all the things in your car manual and everything is just in there. So if they didn't know that there was an Apple product involved in this investigation until 12:30, whenever they went into the house and arrested him and saw the iPad in the shared space and had the receipt in the car, then why are they getting a letter written by a federal agent named Dennis Rice sent over to Apple on 12/21 asking for information on Bryan that had something to do with his Apple accounts? How do you have a letter being written to Apple by a federal agent on 12/21, a whole 9 days before you even know that there's an Apple product involved? How do you explain that? Now they have to explain that. Now that we know that this letter exists from 12/21, they have to explain that. So now that you guys know what we're listening for.
Prior to this case, had you ever prepared an Apple warrant?
I don't remember.
What was your training related to Apple warrants in December of 2022?
I had no official training at that time.
Look, bro, like you think that you're joking, but that's what he did, dude. That's what Bryan Kohberger did. There's a woman who came out and said that she knew him from back then, and she has still shots and screenshots of them literally like on FaceTime because they were on FaceTime all together. They were besties. So yeah, that's exactly what he was doing, fake Detective Mowery. He had to get an Apple account and create an Apple account so he can FaceTime some babes. That's literally what there's proof of. This incel theory about Bryan Kohberger does not make any sense. It really does not. That's exactly what he was doing. It's ridiculous.
I'm handing you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit A. It does have a sticker, and it's to the Apple motion. Can you state what that document is?
Appears to be a preservation request.
And who is it sent to?
Apple Corporate Legal Counsel,
And what's its date? What is it? What is the date on it?
December 21st.
Of 2022.
Correct.
And that letter was not sent by you, right?
No, I do not remember sending this. No,
Well, can you look at
that's not me.
yeah, the top of it is Department of Justice, and the back, page 2 is Special Agent in Charge Dennis Rice.
Correct.
How? 9 days before they go inside and see the shared device. How? Just in caseies? Like, is this something that they did just in case there was an Apple device? Just in case there was some sort of Apple product? I don't know. How do you explain that 9 days before they ever saw the iPad? It's actually funny that you mentioned Napoleon Dynamite because, like, I'm from Kerrville, right? Kerrville, Texas. It's like South Texas. There's a lot of crazy, like, stuff that happens down there. Apparently, the cast of Napoleon Dynamite goes down to Kerrville, Texas once a year to do some sort of, like, reunion thing. And I don't know why. The movie wasn't shot there, but they go once a year. The entire cast goes to Kerrville. And they get together and they talk with the locals and they have like a thing. It's kind of like Comic-Con or like a panel for Napoleon Dynamite, I guess. Very odd. Very odd. But yeah, that just reminded me of that. Like I was just told that not long ago. Very strange little side note.
How was the DeSales email account known at that date?
I don't remember.
Now, see, that's information that came out of the, I think that Garrett report that we ended up getting information from, because it came out and was put on Reddit, and he came out and said that all of that information came from he wasn't asked to look up this information. He had no reason to look up this information. It was literally just his own curiosity. And so it wasn't anything that was verified or validated, any true information that was sent over from the police or from the investigating agencies or from the lawyers or anything. It was just information that he found on his own without any of it being validated or verified. And some of it was some of this stuff. And it's all stuff that's already been proven to not matter, to not have any connections, to not have anything to do with anything. But I don't understand why they would even have had the DeSales information back on 12/21 in the first place, because in the PCA, they have in the PCA that at the time the PCA is written, he is employed at WSU. Like on 12/30 or 12/29 at 12/30, whatever the date is on the PCA exactly, he is employed currently at the time it's being written. So I don't know why they even had the DeSales information. They're going to have to explain how they got a lot of this, especially since DeSales is privated because it's education. Lots of secrecy and lots of sketchy stuff.
How did you become aware of an Apple product in this case?
Memory serves, when the search warrant in Pennsylvania was executed, there was an iPad that was located in one of the shared living spaces in the home, and there was a receipt in his vehicle.
I have a lot of videos on this stuff already. He was trespassed because he was still working there. If he had already been fired, he wouldn't have had to have been trespassed, because if he was already fired prior to his arrest, there'd be no reason for him to go back there. He was trespassed and all that stuff after his arrest. Yeah, we've done so many videos on this already. It's a big topic that we've talked about.
On Mr. Kohberger's vehicle that was found for an iPad as well.
And during the home search, was the iPad seized?
It was not.
Why not?
It was in a shared living space.
Do you remember what day that the Apple account was created?
I don't remember. No, ma'am.
Does 2016 sound familiar with the research?
That sounds vaguely familiar. Yep.
And you mentioned the receipt that was found in his car. Do you recall the date that indicated that an Apple product was purchased?
I do not remember.
Right. I will show you State's Exhibit 1 to the affidavit for search warrant. And I believe that's tabbed, the receipt.
This is State's Exhibit S1, affidavit for search warrant to Apple Inc.
And it's 2018, the date.
Yes, ma'am.
Where did you get the form to prepare the Apple warrant?
The form? Be more specific?
Correct. Well, the search, so you're looking at the search warrant affidavit, and inside of that affidavit is a long list of items that you request.
Yes, ma'am.
I think this is what she's talking about. And the thing that I have to say about this before she gets into it, I think this is what she's talking about, because this is talking about all of the customer subscriber information, everything when it comes to this phone number and what it was doing between midnight on the 12th of November and midnight on November the 14th. And he's going to basically say that he got all this from the people that have knowledge of it, the people that are experts of it. But does this not just look like some sort of template that you would grab from your own department, right? Like, wouldn't that be like a format, a template that you would take? And this is where you would type in your supplemental information, because obviously he's putting in his name and putting in whatever rules and times and stuff that he's putting in right here. And then, of course, up here, he's having to put in this portion of the narrative. I mean, it really does seem like for the most part, this would be a template. So I don't know why they're making a big deal about where'd you get the information that you're asking for. I mean, it looks like this is probably what's being asked for on every single one of these that get sent to a cell phone carrier. I mean, seriously, if you go back and really like look at the details in here, they're pretty generalized. They're pretty vague. They don't say anything about like the provider itself until you get to the address that it's going to. Other than that, it could be anybody's. It could be any provider. It could be Verizon. It could be T-Mobile. It could be anybody's. So this is just a template. So that's why this next portion, I don't really understand the point.
I'm just getting S1 in front of myself for a minute here, Judge, so I don't, or I'm gonna have to give them a different exhibit.
Just so I'm clear, when you said the long list, are you referring to paragraph B on page 2?
On page 2, beginning on page 2,
Is that what you're referring to?
I'm referring to everything A through I.
I'm sorry, was there a question pending? I kind of threw us down a side alley there, so I apologize if there was a question pending that I threw you off from.
No, that's fine. I'm looking for the page here. Do you recall that in your affidavit, there's reference that iOS devices can use an iCloud account to back up the iOS device?
Yes, ma'am. That sounds familiar.
And what is it? What's your understanding when an iOS device uses an iCloud to back it up?
Similar to Google and many other of these digital operating systems, essentially they back it up to a cloud account. That information is stored not on your device only, but also in a cloud storage area. That's my understanding of it.
And so in an Apple phone, that ends up as creating a duplication of what's on the phone?
Essentially, yes.
And do you recall that in the affidavit, you made reference to the fact that Apple users get 5 gigabytes typically of storage and then can purchase more?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't really know why she mentions that part unless they like know for a fact that Bryan has purchased more data than the norm or like than the minimum. But then again, that doesn't mean anything either. Well, and see, I could have sworn he had an Android. I could have sworn he had an Android because we went over. I was talking to his name on here is the architect. I was talking to him about it a while back. I can't remember where. I don't remember whether it was on here or on Twitter. But we could have sworn that Bryan had an Android product at the time that this was happening. He does. That's what I thought. That's what I thought. Because we went through the Strava information and basically all of it led to it being an Android. That's why there's Google information being taken. And as far as like financial information, Google, like getting Google and getting like Google Pay information is really the only financial information that we've really seen when it comes to them trying to get financials on Bryan, at least the ones that we have been able to publicly see. All the other financial information is for the victims. See, and that's why whenever all this, like he has multiple iOS device IDs and stuff like that, we were like, okay, but there was only one phone active And I showed you guys before, there was another warrant for like, I think it was Verizon. Was it Verizon? Because he had another phone number on the WSU directory. He has another phone number, but I don't know if that was like the phone number that he had on there beforehand or what, because it's not the one that was active whenever he got pulled over. And it's just like I've said, if they had a phone number of his that was active, that was at the locations that they're claiming that he was actually at, that would be the phone number in the PCA. That would be the phone number in the PCA. Right. That's what I think too, that it's a work phone. That's why I don't really know like why they would be using, like, I think it's a Verizon one. I think it's Verizon. But you wouldn't need a cell phone if you were a TA, I guess. I guess maybe you would. Do they give you a work phone as a TA? See, that's another thing. I don't know. Like, would they, or is it like an in the office phone? That's the part that I don't know. But then again, it doesn't really matter, because if they had, even if he did have 2 working cell phones, okay, even if he did have 2 cell phones and they were able to track 2 cell phones worth of information for Bryan Kohberger, and one of them actually put him there and proved that he was guilty and the other one proved that he was innocent, the innocent phone would not be the information in the PCA. It'd be the guilty phone. So, I mean, yeah, it's got to be hella old, because if it's the same one that they have a receipt for, it's from 2018. I don't have anything from 2018. I mean, that's how old my son is. That's like a pretty long time for a device to be alive in my house. I mean, so maybe, but that's still like, why do they have a letter on 12/21 about Apple devices if the phone that he had at the time that they would have gotten his name from the IGG was an Android, and they didn't know about an iOS device until they got into the house on 12/30. See what I mean? Like, it still doesn't add up to why the DOJ, that federal agent Dennis Rice, wrote that letter on 12/21. It's not adding up.
D. I'm handing you what's been marked as Exhibit D to Defendant's Exhibit D to the Apple memorandum in support of suppression, and it is it does have a sticker.
All right, it's marked Defendant's Exhibit D, date 11/14/24, entitled Affidavit for Search Warrant, directed to Apple Inc.
Can you please turn to page 27?
That's actually a good point. We don't know. It was after Christmas. It was after Christmas. Gretchen said, I thought the device in the common area was still in the box. It was Christmas. It was 5 days after. It was 5 days after. So I don't think it was in a box. I mean, it could have been still not opened. And it could be a completely different device than the one that they found a receipt for. You're not wrong. But they actually haven't connected the two of them. They haven't validated that the 2018 receipt actually matches the one in the common area. But as for it being Christmas, it was 5 days after. So you'd think that stuff like that would have been would have been open. Maybe.
The actual warrant itself that you're.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, it's, I don't want to answer that as a yes before I look and make sure what this exhibit is.
I want to make sure because my page numbers run out at 25.
It's Exhibit A, and it's to the.
I don't recall them ever saying that in these hearings, that the iPad belonged to a school. I know that the letter on 12/21, whenever the federal agent was sending a letter over to AT&T, that they also had the DeSales email address, but at that point in time, I don't think they were looking for stuff with the WSU email. If you can remember where they said that the iPad was school related, if you could drop the timestamp and let me know, but I don't I've listened to these so many times, I don't recall that, but I don't hear everything either.
To the Apple warrant. It says, so Exhibit D, Apple, at the bottom that page says page 27, but above that it says page 23.
Yep, I'm there.
Okay. At the top, it says on January 27th, Apple Inc.'s Privacy and Law Enforcement Compliance Office responded
Sorry,
with the
Counselor.
requested record.
I'm not there. So can
Oh,
you
I'm
use
sorry.
direction? Are we looking at state
Exhibit D,
D?
yeah, page 27 of of my marking bait. So it says Exhibit D dash Apple dash page 27.
On January 27, 2023?
Yes.
All right, go
Yes. On January 27th, 2023, Apple Inc.'s Privacy and Law Enforcement Compliance Office responded with the requested records. Can you explain what Apple responded to?
I don't remember what all they responded to. They responded to the search warrant and all those listed items that were in the warrant itself.
And the warrant, the date on this, if you will turn to, let's see. Turn to page 34 of the exhibit. Do you see the date of the warrant?
1st of August.
So I understand that you just said you don't know or you don't remember, but in this context, in your search warrant affidavit, you make reference to something being produced on January 27th to process to get a warrant in on August 1st. Do you know what the process was that Apple responded to or what they produced?
I do not remember. No, ma'am.
I'm handing you Defendant's Exhibit B to the Apple Defendant's Memorandum in Support. It does have a sticker on it.
All right, the exhibit, just for the record, is Defendant's Exhibit B, date 11.
Okay. This is what I was looking for. Where'd it go? I was trying to open the Apple warrant where she was talking about the August dates. This is it right here. Let's see. So the first time I heard this, I was like, what the frick you mean August? And I had to go back and like make sure that she said August of 2023. But this is the part about this that I don't understand. You literally arrested him December 30th of 2022. The last warrant that you did for anything when it came to phone information for him was like 1220 something, 1223. Now, all of a sudden, actually, you know what? Let me make sure that that's accurate. Because, so they have these 4 right here. This is literally all of the victims. All 4 of the victims had Apple phones, had iPhones. So you keep going down and there's no more Apple information, I believe, until we get to the document that I just have open. Keep on going. Which one's this one? Yeah, this is the one. This is the one that I just opened because it's going to be for August. Yep, right here, August. So you're telling me that you arrested him December 30th of 2022. And at the time of the arrest, there's an iPad in a shared space. There's a receipt in the car, too old to matter. And then you have a letter sent on 12/21 to preserve anything when it comes to Apple IDs, because there was Apple IDs included in that, I believe. The letter. And you don't do anything again until August? Why are you not filing a search warrant for Apple all within like the first 7 days of having his information? Why are you waiting 8 months? 8 months before you file for another one? And mind you, in between the 12/21 and this August 2023, There is a failed federal grand jury, which means that all of the information, like this bullshit ass letter that where this Dennis Rice dude got whatever the hell he got from sending that letter, whatever was given to the grand jury, the federal grand jury, then failed, was information that was obtained by these feds. So in between the feds instructing Brett Payne on how to do things incorrectly and him not knowing any better than to double check anything and having no idea what he's looking at, not looking to see if anything matches and just passing it on, in between that and the failed grand jury, this is where we get into the cover-up information. I think this is where we start the cover-up, is after the failed grand jury, because now Moscow PD has to make sure that their case doesn't look like shit, because they counted on the feds knowing what the feds were supposed to be knowing what to do. That makes sense. They were counting on the feds to know how to do their job. So they basically let the feds take over the investigation, if you really look at it, because the feds apparently went in and took away the information from Othram, doubled the profile, then suddenly had information. They're the ones who went to Pennsylvania and orchestrated everything after they handed the information over to Moscow. All of their information is what was apparently presented to the grand jury because it was federal and it failed. So now Moscow, because their signatures are on everything, they're the ones who have to now clean it up. This is where the cover-up started, right here. The feds not doing what they were doing and basically putting Moscow in the spotlight for being the ones who have to take accountability, because there's nothing that the feds have to prove any of it. They didn't keep any of their work. They didn't keep any of their notes, and they deleted the profile. So this is where now Moscow, to save their own asses and to make sure that their little precious school doesn't like lose everything, no, besides the actual cover up here, this is where Moscow's doing their own thing. Now they have to try to fake it. Now they have to fake it. This is insane. This is wild to me. How are you going to think that you've got the guy and you're going to wait 8 months after a failed grand jury to go back in and search Apple IDs? What the hell do you think that you're going to get from this that you hadn't already obtained? Nothing that you had mattered. This is just as stupid as the job that I have. And it's not stupid because the job that I have, it's stupid because of the people that I have to fight. Because they will sit there and deny a claim for a patient, and we will have sent in medical records and clinicals and shown just how important it was for this certain patient to get this certain surgery because this certain thing happened, and we have to prove our case. And then they deny it anyway, and they say, well, you can combat it, by sending in an appeal with medical records. You mean the same freaking medical records that you just denied? Like, you already looked at them and you want us to waste time sending them in again? This is what this is like. Like, what are you doing? Like, trying to get more information. You're asking for more information. You've already seen it. You've already seen it. So what are we asking for it again 8 months later? 8 months. 8 months. And there's still no connection. There's nothing that connects them on social media. There's nothing in his car. There's nothing in his apartment. There's nothing at his parents' house. He wasn't there. How did we get here? I'm just going to keep asking that question. How did we get here? I don't understand. I don't.
1424 on the sticker, and the title is Certification of Apple Inc. Custodian of Records.
Okay. Detective Payne, on this, there's a certification. This document is a certification of Apple Inc. Custodian of Records. Do you see that?
Yep.
And it indicates that records are certified and being produced from legal process served on to Apple on January 12th, 2023.
Yep.
You see that? What was served as legal process on Apple on January 12th, 2023?
I don't remember.
You know what the legal process would be?
I don't remember what that would have been.
I found the one that she's talking about right here. So this is the Motion to suppress a memorandum Apple account from the federal grand jury subpoenas from the federal stuff. And this is where she's talking about, remember, we went over these documents and it took like hours to go over all of this. But this is where she's talking about it right here. See the January 27th date? And she's talking about how there's going to be another federal agent that's involved in getting the information and about the preservation request. Again, April 6th. That's months after his arrest. The fact that they just like dilly-dallied for everything is so ridiculous too. Jeez.
Going back to, going back to Exhibit D. Do you have that one in front of you still?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you turn to page 35 of that?
Yep.
On line 4, what does it say?
Warrant was served by Corporal Payne on August 1st, 2023 via law enforcement at apple.com.
And so that would have been the Apple warrant, right?
Correct.
And you served it, right?
I believe so.
Well, when you say you believe so, would you have executed an affidavit if you hadn't?
No, ma'am, I just want to make sure on the warrant return itself that it wasn't served by one of the digital forensics folks.
This affidavit is your affidavit, and on line 4 it says you served it, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you serve that with a copy of the search warrant affidavit?
Notice the via is not there for some reason. Why? That doesn't make sense. Why would you just not have how you... We know it's through like a portal or an email. Why would you just not have that? Why would you have actually whited that part out? And see, this is supposed to be like balance, and then there's another person's name, the one that I just showed you guys. This Maria, tactical specialist Maria Tyndall. So,
Was it your practice in serving all of these warrants that where you actually did service, that you would serve the warrant only?
Yes, ma'am.
did you just hear that crinkling? I didn't realize the first time around that he opened up like a candy wrapper and stuck candy in his mouth.
And then on Exhibit D, page 37.
Okay.
At the bottom where it says description of property, can you explain what the return was for that Apple warrant?
All account information associated data for the following Apple identifiers, and it goes through.
Who have you put in charge of evaluating Apple data?
I relied on the specialists in those fields, which would be Detective Mowery and then SA Balance. Those are the folks who knew far more about it than me.
And do you know, as we sit here today, whose job it is to evaluate the Apple data for this case?
I don't know, ma'am. Not right now.
Okay, the next warrant we will talk about is Google. I'm handing you what's being marked as Defendants D to the Google memorandum in support of suppression.
Records closes. Defendant's Exhibit Number D with the date on the sticker of 11/14/24, which refers to the sticker date, I believe, not necessarily the document date. And then it's entitled Return of Search Warrant. Search warrant for Google LLC. That as the other documents that were proper are admitted.
Did you prepare the Google warrant returns Exhibit D?
Yes, ma'am.
On page 2 of that exhibit, does your affidavit say Detective Mowery served the warrant through a portal?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so right here is what she's talking about. This says affidavit of Brett Payne. I believe this is what she's talking about. That's what I was showing y'all this while she was talking. This says I, Brett Payne, and it's the affidavit of Brett Payne, right? Okay. But then the warrant was served by Detective Mowery. That's what she's talking about. Why does it talk about the fact that it's in there? And that's why, and it mentions his name along with Brett Payne's. But this was one of 3, like she said, because there are 3 dates right here, the 1/3/23, the 1/24, and the 2/24/23 that she's questioning him on.
Random in support of motion to suppress.
All right, defendant's exhibit number E, again with the date on the sticker 11/14/24. This is a receipt and inventory of warrant to Google.
On this document under the description of property, can you state what Google account you put in as received?
Zip files for all digital records for the Google accounts of Bryan Christopher at gmail.com and username spelled a bit different at gmail.com.
Did you know that the email in the warrant is actually Bryan Christopher 1994 at gmail.com?
Oh, that sounds familiar. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so on that description, is that a mistake?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you do anything to, I asked you this, but you didn't do anything to verify that the data that you received from Google fit what was requested in the warrant?
No, ma'am. Not to my recollection.
And what else was it that we heard? That was something similar from Mowery when it came to footage of the car and different stuff like that, that he just like put it all together in a folder and didn't organize it or do anything, didn't double check to see if it was even the same car, if it was even worthy of being in evidence, none of the things. Just like Payne is not checking to validate that the information that he's being given to file warrants for is the correct information because they filed it on an incorrect email, stuff that didn't even exist. No one thought to double check.
Right, that's it for Google. You were in Pennsylvania for Mr. Kohberger's arrest, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you watched the preparation for service of the arrest warrant?
How do you mean?
Well, maybe I should ask this more open-ended. Tell us about your arrival in Pennsylvania in time-wise to his arrest, time frame of his arrest.
Now, this is an interesting change because this makes a lot of things make no sense. What and please, in the comments, in the chat, I'm looking right now. Tell me if we did not hear that the first time that Payne talked to Kohberger, or that the only time that Payne, like, I guess, interviewed Kohberger, it was on the phone after his arrest, right? And apparently that the phone call was not recorded. But it was like, it was after his arrest, after he got to the police station, he talked to Brett Payne on the phone. Now, what we're about to hear here is that while Bryan Kohberger was being arrested, Payne was driving, I'm going to assume from the airport, driving to the location and watching the arrest happen in real time on a live feed from a drone. And they went ham and brought in some sort of like armored truck. Like I have the name, a Bearcat. They brought in a Bearcat down the driveway and did all kind of cray stuff. All right. They made it sound as if like it was just wild. Okay. And apparently it was originally supposed to be a knock and announce and let it be a little bit normal. And then the glove thing happened. But I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm not intrigued by the fact that whenever Logsdon gets up and they talk about the arrest day, that there's more information about apparently what they saw Bryan doing inside the house that caused them to go inside, besides just the fact that he was walking around wearing gloves. And apparently they were watching him via a sniper. And I'm guessing he was going like from room to room, maybe like wearing gloves. But there seems to be like some more information that they're just not telling us, which I don't really quite understand, because why not? Like, if it's really something that makes you feel as if you had to go from a regular ass knock and announce to now you got to bring in the Bearcat and destroy the entire house to get to the car and all this crazy shit after you've been watching him forever, why not just tell us? Why being crazy? Why are we being dumb? Just come on now. It doesn't really honestly make any sense. Like, you're making it sound as if it was all for nothing. If you really feel like it was for something, then why are we hiding all of this? I don't understand that. I don't understand that part. Or the body cam thing. Anyway. We're about to hear that he was driving to the location and Payne admits himself in this that he has never been inside the house or even in the neighborhood where Bryan Kohberger was arrested. Meaning that wherever he was driving from and watching this live feed of this drone, watching the arrest, which he also says he was not screen recording it, so it's not recorded. Now, I don't know if anybody else was also watching it. I wouldn't see why somebody back at MPD would not be also watching it and why there would not be some sort of recording of it somewhere. Like, seriously, do they really think we're dumb? Do they really think we're freaking stupid? Let's just be for real, okay? There's no way. Just because Payne didn't record it doesn't mean somebody else didn't. But for him to say that he was watching that while he was driving there, that he was never in the neighborhood and never went into the house, does that mean that he talked to Bryan Kohberger while he was still in a car on the way to the police station where Bryan Kohberger ended up being held? And we're supposed to believe that once he got there that he didn't sit down and talk to him? We're supposed to believe that that conversation had over the phone was the only time that they had a conversation, period? There's no way. So there's a lot more information here, too, about where Payne really was. So he had to have been like driving from the airport straight to the police department and never even went to the neighborhood. So then where's this phone call? We still have no more information on this phone call.
Arrest.
I believe we arrived there, if memory serves, about 7 p.m. on the 29th. And I think I get my dates right here. We observed final preparations for the SRT operation that was going to take place. And then myself and Detective Gilbertson from ISP drove to a separate Pennsylvania State Police barracks to await the arrival of Mr. Kohberger.
Okay, so then he gives more examples there. So he wasn't even anywhere near involved in any of it. He wasn't there to see any of it. He only watched on the drone. So if he was there the whole time, then why didn't he? I want to know what this phone call is about. Because there's a lot of people that think that there was some sort of phone conversation with the police department and Bryan prior to any of this, because there's a portion of the Pennsylvania information, and Yoli has done a video on it. And it's something that I want to look more into because they're trying to say that they arrested him under like fugitive law. And to me, you're not a fugitive if you don't know that you're running from something. And if Bryan is truly innocent, then he isn't thinking that him going to his parents on Christmas break is him running and crossing the state lines and trying to run from charges. So I don't understand. See? But this is the part. I don't know if it's prior. I think it's prior to his Miranda rights. I don't think it's prior to his arrest. And that's the part that I'm still trying to figure out. Because this is a back and forth conversation. See, I'm going to have to go back to listen to some of the stuff because I know that it was in a hearing where Ann Taylor mentioned a bunch of it. I'm going to have to go back and pay attention to that and get more details on that. Because to me, the information that Payne tells us here is a lot different than what we were originally led to believe.
When you were observing preparations, what were you observing?
I believe we observed their final tactical brief for SRT, and that was about it.
Can you explain what that was, what the preparations were that they were making when they were doing that tactical brief?
I can give you a general overview as best I got. So it had your entire SRT that was going to be conducting the operation present.
For the record, SRT is
A special response team, usually what it stands for, Your Honor. So they were doing their final preparations, going over their approach, team member assignments, so on and so forth. This was all done via basically a briefing in front of everybody.
And do you recall that the preparations included that in preparation, they were going to knock and announce in execution
I believe that was brought up. Yes, ma'am.
of the warrant? Okay. And while you were there, did you go into and have were you given a tour, or did you drive into the gated community of Mr. Kohberger and see where he was living?
No, ma'am.
You never went in or around his home?
No, ma'am.
When the execution of the arrest was happening, did you have the ability to listen in any way?
The only ability that we had at the time was a very choppy drone feed. We were driving at the time it happened, and that was the only communication we had.
And so how is that choppy drone feed being communicated to you?
Via cell phone.
So can you explain that? Like, who's the person communicating with you about the drone? I just don't understand.
So essentially, it's a drone operator with their SRT. I don't remember how it was conveyed, a link of some sort. They dropped a drone, it took off. I got the link so we could essentially just watch a live feed of what the drone was seeing, and that was it.
Do you know if that live feed was recorded?
I do not know, ma'am.
Did you record the while that was happening? Did you create a recording?
No, ma'am.
So all this guy could really see of the entire arrest was the people getting into the yard, onto the property, the Bearcat going up the driveway, because he's going to describe that here in a minute. And after the people go inside, he doesn't know what the hell's going on. He has no clue. And then does the drone just like hover for the whole over 3 hours that we're hearing that they were all held at gunpoint before they finally put Bryan in the car and took him to the police station 30-something minutes away? Because that drone isn't going to say anything about what was going on in that house. I just don't understand. I just don't understand what they think drone footage is going to do. It's not going to do anything. You can't see what's actually happening. Oh, thank you for the $1, Amber. That's very sweet. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, he was mobile. He was mobile. So he got there the night before. What does that say? Yeah, he only saw the drone. So no one else was telling him what was going on. Why? If he got there the night before and he's now sitting at some command center or some shit like that, why are we waiting 3 hours to move Bryan Kohberger out of his house to take him down to the police department? I don't understand that. Why wouldn't they instantly take him out and take him straight to the police department? Isn't that the whole point of going in with an arrest warrant, is to take them under arrest? And he just hung out there for 3 hours or so. And I wonder if the drone footage, that's what I was getting to. Did the drone footage just hover for 3 hours and then watch them remove Bryan? And that's all they have is this drone stuff. But you know what? I really want to know about other people's cameras. Did they go into the neighborhood and remove people's data that have ring cams? Because that's a nice neighborhood. And I've questioned if Kohberger's parents had a security system, and if there's video footage from a security system of this actually happening. But then we also have to think about the neighbors. But I'm thinking in my head, we know how they like to cover shit up, right? So I'm wondering if some agents were assigned to go around to the neighbors' houses and erase any ring camera security footage that anybody might have recorded of this happening. Because nothing's leaked. We ain't got nothing. No screenshots, no still shots of what was going on. Nothing.
What is a Bearcat?
Bearcat's an armored vehicle used in SWAT operations.
And do you know what role the Bearcat, describe that vehicle again.
So they're usually built on, I think it's like a Ford F-250 chassis. So it's a pickup cab essentially, but it's got a large box compartment in the back, for lack of a better term. Usually has portholes on the sides.
Retrofitted military
No,
piece
ma'am.
of machinery.
No, ma'am.
It's specifically a law enforcement piece of machinery.
Yes, ma'am.
And it sounds like it's really big.
If something that looks like this was coming up your freaking driveway, would you not like pee on yourself? I'm sorry, but if this was coming up my driveway, I would be having a panic attack. I would not be able to just stand up straight. This is scary. These are scary. These are tactical military type vehicles. And this is a man that was going jogging around the neighborhood every single day, unarmed, that they had through the lens of a sniper rifle, literally on a daily basis. And they felt the need for this. Bro, overkill. Overkill. Overreach, overkill, whichever word. Overstaged, all the things. Overstaged with no footage, though. That's where I'm like confuzzled. They went and did all this insane shit and it's not supposed to be on camera nowhere? Wild? Wild? I want to know from the neighbors in that area, did an agency come around and delete footage out of your house once this arrest was done? I want to know.
What's your understanding of where that Bearcat was parked for the arrest?
I believe the Bearcat, if memory serves, drove up the driveway and just parked in front of the house.
I'm handing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 5 to the motion to suppress, and it was attached to 119 Lambston.
Thank you for joining Aussie True Crime. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Welcome, 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 welcome. Somebody made a comment, Lori. Me and my buddy Chris talk about that, or I've mentioned it. We both sort of mentioned it. We've thrown it back and forth. That maybe that was the original intent, was to go in there with such like ridiculousness that something would happen and they would end up having to actually like they wanted him to fight back, is sort of something that we've thrown around, and maybe it just didn't work for them. And that's why they held him there for like 3 hours and some change before they took him off, because they were like trying to maybe get something to happen so that they wouldn't have to deal with all this. And that's why none of it's recorded, because that's what they really kind of wanted to happen. Something that wasn't on camera that would lead to, well, he's gone, we're good to go. And it just didn't happen that way. It's something that's been discussed for sure.
All right, this is marked with an exhibit sticker S5. Title of the document is Pennsylvania State Police. Heading with essentially a letter directed to Detective Payne.
Detective Payne, can you explain what that letter is?
It's a justification for reasoning for amending the original plan for knock and announce to a hasty knock and announce and quicker entry into the Kohberger home.
When did you receive that?
I believe this was recently. I don't remember what date.
When you say recently, Was it received in response to prepare for today's suppression hearing?
I believe so.
Do you know why Mr. Lang didn't date the letter?
I have to ask him, ma'am.
So he just had something sent to him in preparation for the for that court date. I was looking to see if we had a document. This obviously does not have a document because this has to do with Pennsylvania. Let me show y'all this. We're going to go through these separately too. This is the website where the information for the Pennsylvania warrants and stuff is at. It's on their Commonwealth website. So this is where they've gotten a bunch of their dates whenever they're going through the dates and the time zones for what got signed and when and what got sent where, that kind of thing. It's also where the inventory reports came from for what they took from the house. I guess maybe there's a possibility that the change in the no-knock warrant was like it might be in here somewhere. I'm not really quite sure. Because this is, see, Exhibit A was used. So Brett Payne's was used for Pennsylvania, but Blaker's was used for all the stuff in Washington. Okay. But I don't know. I don't know if this like amendment to this, the knock and announce. I don't know if that's going to be on here. So we'll find that out whenever we end up going through all of these, but we're going to do it. I have so many things that I want to do.
For knock and announce to a hasty knock and announce and quicker entry into the Kohberger home.
When did you receive that?
I believe this was recently. I don't remember what date.
When you say recently, was it received in response to prepare for today's suppression hearing?
I believe so.
Do you know why Mr. Lang?
So it is something that was created specifically for this. So see, and that just makes it a little bit more like, does he really just not remember or know because he really just doesn't know because he really didn't look at anything? Because like he said, like he's getting instructed by the feds. As soon as he's getting the emails, he's sending them straight over to balance. He's not looking at anything. So that's why I'm like, dang, like at first I was like, are you for real? You didn't look at nothing. You didn't refresh your memory. You didn't try to look at anything, nothing. Like you knew this was coming for a long time now. But in reality, like he really just doesn't know because and just like the state can't produce anything that they don't have, he can't answer questions to stuff that he never actually put his own eyeballs on. And I would much rather him say, I don't know, than try to fake it having any sort of connection or try to lie and say that it did have something valid in it if it actually didn't. I'd rather him be honest and say, I don't know, I didn't even look at it. I did as I was instructed. As soon as I got it, I sent it that way. And that's just what it was. That's just what it is. It makes I would prefer it like this because now we know where the blame goes. But I'm also wondering if he's getting text messages from the feds whenever he sits back down because you see him texting. And I wonder if he's being like, I wonder if Balance is texting him or somebody. Oh, 40. Thank you, Sean. That is awesome. This is Sean from New Jersey. I love your channel. Love how you tell it like it is. Keep up the great work. I very much appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm just honest about what I see, and I could be wrong. All of my opinions could definitely be wrong. But whenever I sit here and I listen to the words, and I know a decent amount of information about this case in my head, like I could just go on and talk forever, and somehow just more information just keeps coming out because it's just been in there forever, and just so much of this stuff. Exactly. He has to play the lead. It was all like a front. It was a front. It's really the feds have no answers for how they got here. And the reality of this is they could have easily handed over Bryan's information to them incorrectly on accident. It really could be that simple. I mean, look, there are people that have just no luck. And they really could think that they really did something here. And then they thought that for sure there was going to be a million things that connected this guy because there's no way that they could be possibly wrong because they're the feds, right? So they handed it over and just said, yeah, we got it, bro. We got it. We're just going to go ahead and do this. They just don't want to admit they've got it wrong. That's not fair. That's not fair. And the Goncalveses not giving a single shit doesn't make sense to me either because you'd think that they want to make sure that the suspect, the accused, that the timeline actually matches up. The fact that Steve is just not even trying to ask questions, like What did you spend that $5,000 on to sit outside of the doors for if you weren't even going to pay attention? If you weren't going to actually care about what was being said, you went there for attention and to be in front of a camera. So busy, like so ready to correct the police for what time the girls got home, but don't give a single shit about the timeline for the phone and everything else being completely wrong. Tells you they're not here for justice. They're here for attention. I just don't get it.
Didn't date the letter.
I have to ask him, ma'am.
No date on the freaking letter. It was created for
And
this.
so in
no
that
date.
correspondence, he explains that the knock and announce was shortened to announcing from the Bearcat with immediate forced entry.
Yes, ma'am.
So no cop even knocked. It drove up the driveway and just like yelled through a megaphone. Bryan Kohberger, you're under arrest. Put your hands up. We're coming in. And they destroyed the home to get inside of it because it's in the document. They had to destroy the house to save the car. Which again, what did you save? There was an old receipt in there from 2018. How clean could it have been?
Were you present when Detective Gilbert Mirandized Mr. Kohberger at the station?
Detective Gilbertson?
Gilbertson, sorry, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
And that took place after Mr. Kohberger was first seized in his home, right?
Correct.
That also took place after he was transported in the back of a police car to the station, right? You noted in your report that Detective Gilbertson had a recorder in his pocket at the time of the interview.
I believe so.
Were there any recordings that took place at the Kohberger home when entry was made into the house?
I do not know.
Where was Mr. Kohberger's car parked at the time of his arrest?
It was in the garage.
Was it later?
Which again, I don't find this odd. I don't find this odd. When my dad comes to visit, he parks in front of my car so that I can get out if I need to get out because this is my town. I run my errands in this town. When my dad comes, it's normally for like a long weekend or throughout the whole week. And even though I work from home, I need to be able to get out with my vehicle. And most of the time, whenever we do go places, whenever he's here, I'm taking my car and driving my car because it fits all of us. So for Bryan to be parked in the garage and his parents' vehicles to be out where they can come and go easily makes sense to me because that's how I live my life. Whenever I have my dad here, you know, for overnight situations, his car is parked. I mean, it would go in the garage if I wanted him to go in the garage. But I do other things with the garage. So there's really like just really not enough space, really. I mean, there is. I park my car in the garage whenever I need to for storms and stuff. But he's not really a garage person. So he just parks out of the way. This doesn't mean anything to me. And I know that like so many people, whenever they heard that Bryan's car was parked in the garage, try to make it out to be like something to go with his guilt. And I'm like, bro, you know how like normal this sounds? Like no one wants to play musical chairs. Exactly. Nobody wants to do this. Nobody wants to do this. It's bad enough that whenever my dad first gets here, like he has to park behind me because I'm usually working whenever he pulls in. And so the next day, whenever we go to leave, we have to play musical chairs then, and we have to move the vehicles around. So this makes so much sense to me. Like this is a normal just to stay organized and not inconvenience anyone. It makes the most sense. SFC, thank you for joining. Welcome, welcome, welcome. By the way, let me just go ahead and like put this out here now that this is like reminding me. I've been telling you guys for a while now that we're going to be starting up the members only lives again. And instead of doing it like the first Monday of the month, I'm going to do it the last Monday of the month. So I actually have it on my calendar for the 27th, this Monday coming up. And I have it set between 7 and 8:30 to do a members only live. And so from now on, they really are just going to be like the last Monday of the month. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get the StreamYard stuff set up for like tomorrow so that it's out there for Monday. And that's what we're going to do. So even if there's like new documents and stuff that drop, it's going to stay members only Monday on the 27th. And we'll figure it out from there. But that's what I'm going to start doing because I need to do something additional for the members And that's really all that I can really think of to do right now because I'm already like on such a time crunch for stuff. So last Monday of the month, and this first one's going to be on the 27th. So thank you for joining because you just reminded me and I saw my calendar out the corner of my eyeball.
Later seized pursuant to a search warrant from that garage.
Yes, ma'am.
And when you said that the iPad receipt was found in the car, is that the car that you're referring to?
Yes, ma'am.
That is all the questions that I have for you. Thank you.
Cross-examination. Do we have this moment, Your Honor?
They don't say nothing here. They make nothing clear. They don't really seem to care about anything. So we're just going to only listen to what Eliza has to say here because she's the one making points. The state really has nothing to say. And like, I took notes and like, I don't have anything on here that tells me that the state actually said anything that I want to talk about. There's really nothing here. There's really just not. Now, in the one previous to this, the one on Thursday, the state said a lot of stuff because a lot of stuff that got clarified about Dylan was said out of Jennings' face. But for now, for this one, we're skipping her. We're skipping all their stuff.
People that are getting an email through a portal, Apple, Google, AT&T, how would they have access to the affidavit?
The question was the people that received the evidence, not the people who sent it. So in other words, the police and team that reviewed the evidence, did they have?
Okay. So this is talking about how the affidavit for search warrant isn't attached to anything. And he's saying that that's normal for him to not attach it. And according to the defense, they're making it sound as if it's protocol that you're supposed to have the affidavit for search warrant attached to that stuff. And to me, it's a good question because if you're just willy-nilly sending a warrant for search over to AT&T, to Apple, to anywhere, and you're not putting the legal search warrant behind it that gives the reason for why you want this information, then I don't feel like it should be valid. Because you could literally file that for anyone. For no reason whatsoever. You have no reasoning whatsoever attached. You could just send it over in a template form that you just fill in the blanks for and get like anyone's information for no reason. That's a huge issue. And that's what this part of this is. And I feel like I feel like they've lost the plot in the conversation because it switches from it being attached for the people that it's being sent to, for them to basically like proof of why the information's needed. And I feel like it gets sort of like switched. I feel like it gets sort of switched here about who they're actually talking about.
Access to it, not, that wasn't my
Okay,
question.
I didn't hear you. You do
Just to clarify.
You do have a soft voice and I am losing my hearing. But so then based on that, how would those folks get access to the affidavit in support of the search warrant when they're reviewing materials?
Just so I'm understanding you, those folks, meaning the people who work for these companies, is that who you're referring to?
No, I think that's not what the judge was
Right, I
asking.
understand.
He was asking that once that evidence is returned and you log it, his question was, do they have access to the affidavit in support of search warrant?
Right.
And your answer to him was yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
How?
There were paper copies of it. It was no secret. It was shared freely amongst the investigative team.
Well, if you go with his logic of everything he's already said, it was going straight to the feds, right? Like it was going straight to Balance. Balance was telling him what to ask for. Balance was telling him how to fill it in. And he was sending the answers straight to Balance. So I guess for that part, but still, like if it's protocol that it's supposed to be there, then it should be there. And if it's just as simple as just, attaching it in there, it's not really any extra steps. So I don't see why they feel as if missing this sort of information is just okay. But according to him, this is how he always files his search warrants. So.
Okay. But not each person reviewing, various people are reviewing these, the electronic data for the some 67 devices and third-party warrant returns, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And in terms of my question earlier, which was who I was asking about Apple, who's reviewing that data? Your answer was, I don't know, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So if you don't know who's reviewing something, how would you know that they have access to a search warrant affidavit?
Well, that's the beauty of having a collaborative team effort. If you share the information freely, it's not independent upon myself to provide that to them. Everybody has that information to reference.
So is in the database that you're creating with this collective, I'll stop this, break this down. My understanding is that the collective document is Exhibit A, correct?
Correct.
And then when you attach Exhibit A to a warrant with Exhibit A to a affidavit in support of a search warrant, you also add additional language depending on who that warrant is for, right?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
So there are over 100 different search warrant affidavits in this case. And it's your testimony that everybody who would have access to doing review of data has access to go in and look at what exact search warrant affidavit was executed?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. No further questions.
I mean, you would assume so. You would assume that there is some sort of programming that they use to where everyone that has access and is actually investigating this case can go in there and all look at the exact same information. But that's not always technically true. It really just all depends on which agency it is and I guess which part of looking at the information it's actually on, because just depending on what's being looked at, there's different departments that look at different things, and sometimes they don't look at everything collectively, which is also kind of stupid. I don't understand why that's like that. Mads, 19 months. Thank you for all your hard work and dedication. Thank you for caring about truth enough to be here for so long, because we've really got to try to figure it out. We've got to try to figure out the truth here. And again, all I know is that the more that they tell us, the less likely it looks like they've got a clue what's happening, sadly.
Follow up with the state on that. All right, thank you, Detective.
Judge, I think we don't need to step away, but I do need a break to organize my documents
Just watch you.
for the next witness, who will be Detective Mowery.
Okay, let's go forward.
All right, the defense calls Detective Mowery.
All right, if Detective Mowery can come and be sworn. One of my staff took the opportunity to take a break. They'll be back in a second, so we'll just get them sworn in and we'll wait for them.
Good morning.
Morning.
Detective Mowery, could you please state your name and spell your last for the record?
My name is Lawrence Mowery, Mowery.
What's your current job?
I am a forensic detective with the Moscow Police Department.
And could you tell us about your background in law enforcement?
I have 14 years of law enforcement experience in the state of Idaho. I've been with the Moscow Police Department for the last 6 years in this current role.
What is your role in this case?
I was, put in charge of, lead, I don't know. I was the one that was looking at and funneling the excessive amount of digital data and evidence that was coming through.
And remember, not organizing it, not validating that it even belonged there, that it needed to be in evidence, that there was any connections, none of the things. According to his own words from last time he took the stand.
Have you taken on any other roles in this case? Have you had other duties?
If you're asking about serving warrants for digital evidence, then I've done that, yes.
And you've heard Judge Mike.
Yeah, you're fine. Go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, thank you, Watts. Love hearing your honest commentary. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Do you agree that the Exhibit A that's been discussed was and attached to warrants, that was a group effort?
Yes,
Have you been a part of that group?
I was.
What role did you have in the first AT&T warrant?
I don't recall specifically. I was there when it was being discussed.
He literally just said, I don't know, I was basically just there whenever it was being talked about. And never mind the fact his whole freaking name is on it. Because this is it right here. I don't know, I was just in the room whenever they were talking about it. Stupid. No, you like your name's on it, broski. Come on now.
Served that warrant? Did you serve it with the search warrant, with the affidavit in support of search warrant attached?
No, ma'am.
Is it your practice to ever serve an affidavit in support of search warrant with the warrant?
No, ma'am.
None of them do it. So again, this is what they're talking about. How is it a valid warrant, regardless of everything else they're talking about? How is it a valid warrant when we have his name right here, Mowery's name right here, but it's being signed by Brett Payne? How is this valid? Because that's a B. Okay, look, let's go closer. That's a B. And that's a P. And that's a Y, a messy one. So it has his signature on it. But it has Mowery's name on it. Why is this allowed? To me, this would make it like invalid. Like you're signing something that isn't yours. You're putting a signature on something saying that you did something that you didn't do, because this is not who that signature belongs to. So why is this allowed? Exactly. I don't know how any of it's valid. None of it. I don't understand how any of this. And look, this was signed. This stuff was looked at by good old little Megan Marshall back whenever everything was sealed up. Who signed the warrant itself? See, because this is Brett Payne's signature. Look at that. That proves it, because this is right here. Brett Payne's name's right on this one, and there's his signature with the old number 157. There it is again. Who was it? Megan Marshall that actually signed this? I don't want to say that in case it's wrong, because this is 12723. This is like the sealing stuff. Come on. Yeah, Megan Marshall. Megan Marshall looked at this, noticed, she didn't notice that it was signed by somebody who actually didn't have anything to do with it. I just don't understand. How do we have so many mistakes? So many mistakes. I don't get it.
Were you co-located with Special Agent Nicholas Balance as well?
Yes, ma'am.
What was the distance that you had in proximity to him?
He sat in the same lab that I did.
And so was that a cubicle setting? Can you describe the setting?
It's a secured forensic lab. It has a door.
And then inside, is it open? Were you in separate offices?
It's a single room.
Single room. And so you were literally in the same room with Agent Balance?
Yes, ma'am.
And was that for the entire time that he was co-located there?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you aware of his ability?
So with the way that Payne described it as being like the second floor of Moscow PD, they were all on the second floor, but Mowery and him actually shared an actual space. Payne was like across the hall, or not across the hall, but I guess like across the way, I guess, across the office area, I guess.
Ability to have access to AT&T records without a warrant?
No, ma'am.
All right, I want to talk now about the cell phone, also known as the USB. Do you recognize that?
Now this is where I'm a little confused. And I'm glad I didn't re-listen to this portion whenever I was going through my notes, because like I said, I realized I really wanted to like pull up the documents in real time. This is the portion of it where I am a little bit confused. Let me let her talk for a minute so I can pull up the right document. But I'm a little bit confused about this part. Give me just a second so I can find the right thing.
Right, I should say, I'm so sorry because there are so many cell phones. Bryan Kohberger's cell phone. I want to talk to you
The
about.
physical cell phone or the data from the cell phone?
We're going to talk about both of those.
Yep.
So for purposes of today's argument, we've called it cell phone /USB. How did the state come into possession of Bryan's phone?
Obtained via the warrant in Pennsylvania.
Was a copy of that phone made prior to the search warrant being signed?
Which search
Copy
warrant?
of Bryan's cell phone.
Again, I'm asking which search warrant you're talking about, the one from Pennsylvania or the one that we requested once the data returned?
I'm talking about when it was first seized. So it'd be the first,
The Pennsylvania one?
right?
I do not know.
You're aware that a copy of the phone was made.
Okay. Where is it? I just had it up. Where did it go? Okay, this is the one. This is the one that I believe is for the information. And I've made, like, I guess not really like a fuss, but I've made a statement about this one specifically because I feel like it's odd that they needed a warrant. Yeah, it is it right here. I felt like it's strange that they needed a warrant to get this from their own lab. Like, this was in the Moscow Police Department forensic lab. Why do you need a warrant? And why are you asking yourself permission to get something from yourself? I don't understand that. I've never understood that. It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, even knowing now, even what we know now about the fact that the feds are the ones who actually orchestrated the forensic download of Bryan's phone and put the information on this device, it's in the possession already of the Moscow Police Department, as you're going to hear, in like a lockbox type thing is what it sounds like. It's like it's behind protective. You got to put like a key, I think it is, or some sort of passcode. It's protected, but it's already there. It's already in the possession of the Moscow Police Department. So why do you need a warrant to ask your own self for something? Are you going to tell yourself no? I don't really quite understand why they had to do that. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And this is also where we're going to hear, it's not said by either Mowery or Payne. It's just sort of said by Misuse as she's talking, and it makes it sound as if this USB device was actually brought back to Moscow, I guess, whenever Payne went back to Moscow. So I guess that would also mean that it was back in Moscow before Bryan Kohberger was actually brought back to Moscow. That's how it sounds by what they're trying to tell us in court, because Mowery is acting like he doesn't know how it got there physically. But I mean, it's not like they mailed it. It would have had to have been brought there in some way, shape, or form, and it would make more sense for them to have physically brought it back if they already had local PD on the ground. So I don't know why they didn't just be honest and say, well, Payne brought it back. I don't know how it got there. It's stupid stuff like that. Why can't you just be honest about how things got where? But we also need to remember, I don't know the document it is right now. I probably should have written the title down. But there's a document where Judge, next to his signature, says that the court has an issue. Is it chain of command or chain of custody? It's one of the two, has an issue with that. And we never heard anything else from it. So we don't really know, we know that it's an issue for chain of custody or chain of command, but for what specific thing? What specific thing? That's the big problem. Custody. Yeah, custody. But what specifically? We never found out. Makes you wonder.
And put on a USB.
Yes.
And then a warrant was obtained to search the USB.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the second warrant.
Yes, ma'am.
Was the cell phone searched prior to the warrant for the USB?
The extraction was created before the warrant in Idaho was requested.
Was the extraction searched before the warrant was obtained in Idaho?
No.
And how do you know that?
So is this it right here? Hold on. What date was this? This was signed by Megan Marshall on January the 9th. And look at this. It's not even like an off-site lab. It's literally the lab that Mowery, however you say his freaking last name, is sitting in. The Moscow Police Department is located at 155 South View in Moscow, Idaho. The forensic lab is located on the second floor. That's exactly where Payne said they all were. So you're literally getting a search warrant to not only ask yourself for something, but you're asking yourself for access to something that's in the exact same room that you're sitting in as you're asking yourself permission for that same thing. That's where we are. That's where we are. Like, this is absolutely stupid. This is absolutely stupid. That's wild. But you're not going to sit here and make me believe for one single second that this is the only copy of this. There's no way that the feds just let you take off with the only copy of the USB or anything, the only copy of the forensic download of Bryan's device. You got a copy. You got a copy. You did not get the copy. So while he might be being honest and saying that the Moscow Police Department did not go through anything when it came to what was on this device, that doesn't mean that the feds didn't. Okay? That doesn't mean that the feds didn't go through everything before Moscow did. So again, he might be being honest about what Moscow did, but that's not really technically answering the question on if it was actually gone through prior. There's no way that the feds didn't go through it. Like, as soon as they extracted it, it was given to somebody and they started going through it. There's no way that they didn't. Because that's like, that was 9 days. What was that? Was that the 9th? January 9th. Man, they did not wait that long. I don't give a damn. They didn't wait that
That was
long.
the one that received the extraction.
The extraction, where was the extraction made?
Pennsylvania.
And who made that extraction?
I believe it was Special Agent Tanzola.
And how did Special Agent Tanzola get that extraction to you?
You'd have to ask him. I believe it was using a Cellbrite product.
So what about is the USB not a physical box of the extraction, or is it all digital?
The USB is just a storage device that the data would be placed onto.
And it getting to you and it getting put on a USB.
Normally, in a forensic environment, the device is extracted. That extraction can then therefore be placed onto a different storage device for evidence storage or for sharing with other forensic investigators.
And so you said normally, but I'm asking you specifically to Bryan Kohberger's cell phone.
The data was placed on the storage device by S.A. Tanzola and provided to me.
Okay. And how did you get the storage device?
I believe it was brought back. I don't recall how it was given to it. It was still in the FBI packaging.
Do you have any personal knowledge of whether or not Special Agent Tanzola?
So my son has something very similar to this because he needed an external hard drive for his Xbox, my oldest son, and he has one a lot like this, but they're giant. They're not like, it's not like the little bitty, it's not like this. It's not like this little bitty old thing right here. These are giant. They're big, super big.
In Idaho was obtained.
I don't recall.
Okay. Judge, this is when you don't have yet either. This is Defendant's Exhibit A to cell phone. And it does have a sticker on it.
Do you have an extra copy of that?
Pardon?
Do you have an extra copy of that?
No, once, did I handed two, right?
Yeah, and just in going forward, I need 2 copies.
I will. I heard that message yesterday, Judge, and I apologize. Moving forward, I will make sure that there's that extra. I'm assuming you want it for your clerk. So,
My staff attorney,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. Oh, I got some breaks later.
For the record, as I've been doing, this has been marked Defendant's Exhibit Number A with a date on the sticker of 11/14/24. The document on which the sticker is placed, first page is affidavit for search warrant. Directed to the Moscow Police Department Forensic Lab.
Detective, how did you create the affidavit in support of the cell phone of the USB warrant?
How did I create it?
Yes.
So I'm not understanding. That's a vague
But
question.
how did you
Notice that a lot of it looks exactly the same as the other warrants. This has the exact same things. It's just a template. All they do is go in and input whatever the change is for whatever specifically that they're looking for. That's why these questions, like this specific question of hers, is odd to me because I'm like, it's a template. It's something a third grader could fill in. You know what I mean? Like it's there's not a lot they had to actually like think about. Everything is really written out for them.
For Digital Forensic Lab.
So when there's knowledge about what you're asking for and a list of things to get, what are you?
That I have viewed from other investigators throughout my time.
Can you turn to page 24? You see that page?
Yes, ma'am.
And is that a page entitled Search Warrant?
Yes, ma'am.
Looking at the first paragraph of that search warrant, is there any reference to search warrant affidavit in the warrant?
No, ma'am.
And is the date of the crime on the search warrant?
I didn't even notice that whenever we were going through all of these before, but she's not wrong. If you look at the document, this just states, Lawrence Mowery, having given me proof upon oath this day showing probable cause, establishing grounds for issuing a search warrant and probable cause to believe property consisting of a Seagate 2 terabyte external USB drive with serial number, it's blanked, but it's in other things completely just right there for the public, for evidence regarding the investigation into the crimes of homicide of Maddie Mogen, Kaylee Goncalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin at 1122 King Road, Moscow, Idaho. No date. No date. Isn't that wild? I mean, it might mean anything, but you know that you're supposed to be extremely specific. And I will say again, in my situation, when I was sending the prosecutor's office text messages and all the crazy shit that I was dealing with, I couldn't put an arrow pointing to something, or I couldn't circle like what was specific that I was talking about on the thing. It had to be completely unadulterated. Everything had to be dotted, T'd. You had to have everything precise. There could be no errors, or else you had to submit it again. So if you can literally get away with doing crazy stuff, and there has literally been people that are guilty as shit, they ended up getting off on technicalities because a birth date was inputted incorrectly or their name was spelled incorrectly. It's small stuff that seems like it doesn't matter, but it's supposed to. It's supposed to. But there's no date in this, and that doesn't matter. Megan Marshall signed it anyway. That's why I'm like, okay, do they even read this stuff? Or are they just taking what they're being told by these people that they're supposed to be trusting to do their job and then signing things that shouldn't be signed because they're trusting them? Trust me, bro. It's basically what this entire case has been like. Trust me, bro.
On page 25, can you turn there? There's a directive to search the premises. Do you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
What's the premises located listed as?
155 South U in Moscow, Idaho, in the forensic lab.
Now, see, this is definitely a document that we don't have, because the one that I'm reading this one from is only 13 pages. And this was whenever it was like unsealed. And then I have this one that's 4 pages where they are filing something that goes with this, but they're filing information under seal. And this is a bunch of that copy and paste stuff that we went through whenever they filed all of these. And then there's this one, and it's just 5 pages. So some of the stuff that they are looking at, we don't have that exact packet of stuff. So they're saying page numbers we don't have access to. Oh crap, it stopped doing its thing. Hold on a second. There we go.
Who is Key Computer Forensic Lab?
Key is not a person, it's a thing. It unlocked the secure cubicle that the USB was placed into by myself so that it was secured. I had the key, and entrance was obtained by Key in the Computer Forensic Lab.
See, so again, you, sir, work in the forensic lab where this USB-C gate is being held. You already are the authorized representative of that forensic lab that has the key that opens up the little whatever the hell this thing is being held in. And you are filing a warrant to ask yourself to use a key that you already have in your own possession. You see how why this sounds like it doesn't even need, like this is unnecessary? Like I understand marking the paper trail of how it got to the forensic lab from Pennsylvania, but this whole thing, you're asking yourself permission and you literally already have the key. You're not having to sign anything out. You're not having to get the key from anyone else. You literally are the person. How just odd. It's just odd.
That makes sense now. I thought it was the name of a company, and I don't know why, but that makes sense. Key Computer Forensic Lab. Who was ultimately in charge of searching the USB drive?
The data was extracted, or not extracted, but reviewed by several different people.
Okay, who are those people?
I don't know all of them. Myself looked at some of the information, but not all.
And you said you don't remember all of them, but who else do you remember?
The information was also given to the FBI. The FBI had that information and they examined it.
And do you know who with the FBI?
No, I do not.
Can you turn to page 27? Can you look at page 6? Or not page 6, I'm sorry. Number 6, line number 6. Do you see that? What does that say?
A copy of the warrant inventory sheet were left with the drive.
And that does not indicate that a copy of the search warrant affidavit was left with the drive. Is that right?
No, ma'am.
Left with the drive. So you ask yourself permission. Again, you ask yourself permission to use your own access to gain access to something that you already have access for. And then you don't input the inventory information about what came off of that USB drive into any sort of system or anything like that. You leave it with the USB, meaning you put it back in whatever lockbox you got it out of with the key that you already had access to. And you just leave the list, like summary of what was on the USB drive back in the lockbox that you have a key for. You would think that this would be put into something else. It would be sealed. There would be like another protocol for this. None of this is making any damn sense.
Okay, I want to talk now about Amazon. Did you swear to several warrants for Amazon?
I did.
Do you know specifically how many?
I do not recall how many.
How were the warrants served? How did you serve Amazon warrants?
I believe that Special Agent Michael Douglas assisted in service of those.
Okay, this is the first one that pops up on this page. And I know you can't see it, which I don't know why it doesn't show it, but I'm doing Control F and then looking for all the documents that have like this label. So this is the first one from Amazon. Again, everything signed by Megan Marshall. And let's see, this one is... Let's see. Yeah, see, Jennings is signature. It's Jennings and Megan Marshall are like the most signatures on all this stuff. So this is Detective Mowery. And this was done on December the 14th. So before they ever had Bryan Kohberger's name. Because what's the date for that, right? The 19th, right? That they sent the IGG information over to Moscow PD, the 19th. So prior to knowing anything at all. And it also says that it was done prior to them having any answers to anything too, because it might have been signed on the 14th, but it was actually obtained on November 26th. That's 2 weeks. 2 weeks after the crime, they obtained the search warrant for Amazon. They didn't get an answer back until 12/8. That's still way before they knew anything whatsoever about Bryan Kohberger. So what they're doing here is they're taking what they're assuming is the closest match when it comes to the sheath that was found. And they're using descriptors based on the sheath that was found, the USMC logo, the fact that it was just a sheath. They probably went on Amazon, like so many of us did, and tried to find pictures of the one that looked the closest to what we thought it would be. But correct me if I'm wrong, and Watts, you're somebody who has looked into this. I don't know if there's any other creators in here, but have we not seen an actual photo of this thing? Right? Like we haven't seen an actual photo of the knife sheath. They've given us like a picture example. And all we can really hope is that the one that they've come out to show us in the mainstream media is the same model. Because there's a bunch of different kinds where some of them open differently. The snaps are different. Like it just really all depends. The logo's in a different spot. They have never given us a photo, just like they've never given us a sketch of the eyes section that Dylan claims to have seen. They never gave us a screenshot of the actual vehicle. Exactly. Stock photos across the board. And notice also that there is 2 different numbers here. Okay, that's because they're going based off of what could possibly be the closest. Okay, what could possibly be the closest. And it was served way before they ever had Bryan Kohberger's information. Okay, that's this one. And this is just repeated information again. And they want it from January 1st. I guess this is supposed to say 2022, but you know how they do things. But there is nothing specific at all in this one. Is this a different date? No. This is just repeated for some reason. Nope, November 26th. Okay, so now let's go to the next one, and it's order to seal this Amazon thing. And let's see what this says here. This is the second one on the list. This was signed for sealing on September the 8th by Megan Marshall. Come on. Okay, so here we go. Lawrence Mowery. And it was signed on 7/5 and May 8th. So this was was this before the grand jury, the federal grand jury? Before the state grand jury, because the state grand jury happened in May, as far as I can remember. It happened in May. But I think it might have happened like 3 days before this. For some reason, I want to think it was like May 4th or May 5th. That could be wrong. And no, I'm actually glad somebody said this because I gloated about this so much because I have been telling Daniel with Drunk Turkey forever that his ass was wrong about them knowing anything about Bryan since November 29th, whenever this tip came through. It has already been stated, and I believe it was in the Thursday's session, that they didn't know Bryan's name from that tip. That was not information that they found that they had until after they already had the IGG information. That was already stated. I was right about that from the very beginning. Though them getting his information on 11/29 out of the WSU system, and then the other officer putting eyes on the car on 30 minutes later on 11/29 was not looked at. It was a tip that was submitted. They didn't move on it. It was just put into a pile of tips, and that was it, according to what they have to say. And I believe that. I believe that because they had nothing until the 19th. Nothing until the 19th at all. Now, also, we have that this is being obtained for Amazon on May the 8th and that it was served on May the 10th. But it looks like right here something happened with Federal Agent Douglas. He ended up actually being the one that received the information, and then Mowery ended up getting the information almost over a week later from the Fed. So Mowery requested it, but he wasn't even the one that actually ended up getting it because he put both of their names on it. And notice that what they're looking for is whited out, and you can see like the white in the lines. But again, why would you wait so long? Why would you wait so long after you arrest somebody? Like, you already did an Amazon warrant. It didn't come with anything. Now, do you guys remember seeing a list? I remember seeing a list of something that came back from Amazon where it had like states, and I want to say initials and the ages of the people that bought that knife. Possibly. I don't remember. But I mean, I don't remember like the specifics, but I remember seeing something. I just don't know if it was legit. I have no idea if it was legit.
What training do you have in Amazon accounts and records?
I do not have any training for Amazon specifically.
And I think you answered my next question, but there was a reference in the warrants to a special agent locating an Amazon account. Is that the special agent Douglas?
I don't recall who was that, who found that information.
How was an Amazon account located?
I don't know.
In your affidavit, where you've got language that talks about what Amazon holds and how it identifies and the list of items that can be collected, if you don't have any training in doing an Amazon warrant, how did you know that?
I was relying on the experts that have worked with or served in warrants to Amazon previously.
And see, again, I find that so stupid because whenever you look at the documents, do they not all look the same as the other warrants that we have seen served to all the other companies? Why are they just not being, well, I mean, it's just a template. Why are they making it sound like you have to have some sort of special ass training? I know it's probably stupid, but that's getting on my nerves. I'm just saying.
I believe that information came from Special Agent Michael Douglas.
And in your affidavit, did you indicate that that was based on your knowledge or on someone else's knowledge?
I based it on mine because I spoke to Special Agent Michael Douglas about it, and he was the one that
Affidavit to use so that you would know what language to include?
I don't remember if he gave me a mock-up, but obviously he would have helped me with the wording of it.
Is it the wording of the warrants is pretty technical, right? All the list of items that is asked for.
Any electronic service provider. Again, I have no specific training to Google. I've served various email or warrants on Google for other means.
Is your experience with Google isolated to this case?
No.
You've done Google warrants before.
Oh, yes.
How did you get the form that you used for the Google warrant in this case?
The Google form, I probably relied on previous warrants that I've served.
Do you know how many warrants you obtained for Google in this case?
It's 3.
That warrant asked for Bryan Christopher 1994 at Gmail, 2 phone numbers, and an IMEI number. What's an IMEI?
International Mobile Equipment Identifier.
And how did you get that number to put in the January 3rd, 2023 Google warrant?
I do not recall.
Okay.
I think that would be this one. What date did she say? January something or other? And see, wait, hold on a minute. Let me make sure. Yeah, this is all for Bryan's stuff. And this is, I think, where they had like the wrong email address listed. Pretty positive. Data related to the Google account. Yeah. Yeah, January 3rd. But see, this one doesn't have the federal agent's information on it. It doesn't have the federal agent's information on it until this one dated. What date is this? March 14th. And this is where Brett Payne talks about the fact that Mowery had previously done one. But what I'm not seeing, okay. February 25th? Well, see, okay, that I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing the February one. Am I tripping? Is it down here? Is this the one right here? See, this is the one where I said, like, this is the closest to financials I feel like we've got. Where is it? It'd be up. No, this is December 22nd. This would be after they knew Bryan's name. I don't see one for February. All right, I'm going to let her keep talking.
Were you, in preparation for creating these warrants, were you having communications with Google?
Specifically about these warrants.
About being able to get the data via warrants?
I don't recall communicating with them specific to these warrants.
Okay, I'm going to hand you what's Defendant's Exhibit F to the Google Memorandum in Support. You recognize that?
Appears to be an email between myself and a Francis from Google.
Sorry, I had to do something with my kid. He gets facts off of things and then has to come and share his information. So whatever they're looking at right here is a personal email between him and somebody else. So this is another one of those documents and things that we are not going to have anything to compare it.
So is this how you were communicating with Google via email?
I was communicating with Google for other, I'm not sure if this is the one for this specific warrant, I guess is where I'm getting at. There was question of what Google could provide. We served Google at one point with a warrant. They said it was, they couldn't do it because there'd be too much data. So they were trying to assist us in, well, basically not spending $100,000 of getting them data.
I find that insane. I guess I didn't realize they had to pay for this stuff. Now, look, I've FOIA'd a couple different things, and any of the FOIAs that I have had approved and I've had information sent to me, I haven't had to pay a single dime. Now, I know that there's some cases where you don't have a choice but to get like paper documents, I guess, and so it costs money. But any FOIA that I've ever gotten, I have not paid for. All the information that we have in the Kylie Rodney case, from the CHP release of my FOIA that I sent in, it is drone footage, satellite imagery, all kinds of stuff, like highly freaking ginormous ass files. Okay. And I didn't pay a dime to be able to access any of that stuff. So for him to sit here and be like, oh, well, we were trying to make sure it wasn't going to cost us $10,000 to get information from Google. They have to pay Google and AT&T to get information? That's wild. Wild.
So to be clear, when I'm talking about the communications generally, I'm talking about your communications with Google about all the warrants. So was there email and telephone communications or just email?
I believe I spoke with their legal representation on the phone. I don't remember if there was other conversations.
Do you understand the difference between a personal account and a not personal account on Google?
I do not.
Okay. Well, there's reference to DeSales and DeSales helping from their end. Can you explain that?
I don't recall what that means.
Do you recognize what DeSales is in the course of this case?
It references an email address that was associated with the defendant.
Okay. And that email address associated with the defendant is a college that he attended, right?
Yes.
And so what was there communication with DeSales about them not wanting to produce records pursuant to a warrant because it was educational records protected by federal law?
I was part of a little bit of that. Officer Detective Payne knew more about that conversation, but yes.
And so what I'm trying to understand is what was DeSales doing to help?
I believe DeSales was just waiting for a warrant. I don't recall completely.
But there's a document. I don't remember which one it was. But I do remember that it's one of the more recent ones. And they said something about how somebody at DeSales was going to be helping them do something to get that information. I'll try to find it. Let me see if I can find it.
And did you serve the Google warrants?
I believe I did.
I believe you said you did?
Yes.
And consistent with what you've said earlier, you did not include an affidavit in support of search warrant with that? Why did you choose the timeframe of January 1st, 2021 to December 30th, 2022?
I don't recall the specific reason why we went back to January 1. It was to include the time that we believe that the defendant had entered Washington to become a student nearby the crime scene and just prior to that.
Right. But you know that he didn't come to Pullman, Washington until June of 2022, right?
Correct.
Did you review the Google warrant return emails?
Yes.
Did you review? So you said you reviewed them. Are you the one who's in charge of evaluating those materials for this case, or is that designated to somebody else?
The materials came to myself, at which time it was disseminated to other investigators and the FBI as well.
Is it fair to say that between warrant 1 and warrant 3, it's gone from 2 gigs to over 13 gigs of material?
It was substantial information.
And have you done anything to verify whether or not the materials produced are within the scope of the warrants?
I usually made sure that they were from that specific account when it's received, but I did not go into depth of the evaluation.
So again, he's not really checking anything. I don't understand why being mediocre is acceptable. Why aren't they having to make sure that everything is accurate and connects correctly. I don't understand, honestly. I just don't.
Let's talk, the final area is about the Apple warrant. What was your role in those warrants, in that warrant? Sorry, not plural, singular.
I don't remember that specific one. I know I was involved in a lot of the Apple iCloud warrants.
What kind of communications did you have with Apple to facilitate getting the warrant?
I don't recall.
Thank you, Mikey. Another gifted membership. Thank you. Congrats to whoever got it. Congratulations.
All prior to.
I'll hand you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit C to the Apple warrant. It does have a sticker on it. And it's not to the Apple warrant, it's to the memorandum in support.
Exhibit C attached to their memorandum dated, exhibit sticker dated 11/14/24. Appears to be a printout of some emails.
Do y'all think we'll get this stuff? Like, do you think that eventually he's going to do what he said he was going to do and he's going to like unseal things? Because he has made it clear that he believes that they're being like over secretive, which I agree, because if you really got your man, then be honest and just open it up. Like, what are you hiding? What are you hiding? So I wonder if one day we'll get these emails and be able to see like what was actually discussed. Because I do remember in the beginning, whenever Ann Taylor was asking for like credentials and stuff like that, she also was asking for like all of the email communications. And if that's how the unexperienced at MPD were getting their information, was mostly like conversations on the phone or even through email, like you'd think that that stuff would be pretty important to go through.
Have you reviewed those?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you, does that help refresh your recollection regarding what communications were occurring?
It appears that there was communication between Apple and the FBI.
Okay. And were you included in that?
I believe I was.
Okay. And did that include chats,
I believe the word chat means to chat, to talk. Like,
like telephone talk or Zoom talk, or what was the method?
I believe it was telephonic.
So what kind of help were you getting from Apple?
Were they recorded calls? You think they would have to be, right?
And what was the FBI getting from Apple?
I don't recall the conversation. This was more specific to the FBI's current investigation. As I stated in my email there for the stalking investigation, I was merely just privy to their conversation.
Have all of their materials related to that been turned over?
Who's there in that sentence? Counsel?
Pardon?
Who's there in that sentence?
Sorry, FBI.
I do not know. I wasn't, yeah, I don't know.
I have no further questions.
He just doesn't know anything. He just doesn't know anything. And again, he's sitting there like, I don't know. I was just around the conversations the same way that you were just in the same room as it was getting talked about. And you claim that was it, but your name is literally on it. Like, there are some things that I can say that they can say they don't know, especially if they're going to say the way that Payne says. Like, I feel like Payne is really like maybe the more he just did as he was told guy. Mowery seems to really be trying to act as if he is like a big and bad. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, Payne has no issue being like, I didn't check it. All I did was get the information from the Fed guy. I turned it in. As soon as it got to me, I sent it over. Mowery is trying to take more of like a personal responsibility type approach. Payne is trying to pass the buck if it should be passed, then go ahead. I'll help you pass it on, buddy. But I find it interesting the way that it's a different dynamic. Like it's a different approach. At least that's how I'm seeing it.
A few questions, John. Can I stay here? Okay. Just a few follow-up questions. When you received the evidence back from these various providers, did you have access to what we refer to as affidavit or search warrant?
Yeah, there's nothing here. It was done. She asked like 2 questions and it was done and over with. Okay. So that's it. That's it. Like I said, there's a lot of information that we learned over these past 2 days. A lot. A super lot. And again, as much as I find all of this like just as interesting because damn, we learned a lot, Thursday's sessions were definitely more interesting to me. Definitely more interesting to me. And I don't really feel like anything was answered too much. Honestly, like we have so much more information, but I don't really feel like a lot of anything else got answered. Like if anything, we still have like more questions. Honestly, we still have more questions. And I'm just really not. Like, I knew this investigation was done so poorly, but I wasn't expecting for it to be. I almost feel like, at least for Payne, almost like it wasn't even intentional. Like, he literally was just doing whatever he was told to do and he didn't know any better. And that might be me just taking whatever he's saying and trying to wrap my brain around it. But just the fact that it's like, well, the Fed said to do this, and so I did it. And then I didn't look at anything that I received and anything that I signed. I just passed it back to the guy who told me to do it. But that guy's signature isn't on anything. They still need to explain how the hell we have a federal agent sending a letter about an Apple device 9 days before they see the Apple device for the very first time ever. That's probably like the biggest takeaway from this portion, the Friday portion, I guess. Let me go back and look and see if that's really it. I mean, the fact that they went and did the pin trap and trace warrant within an hour and what was it, 20 minutes of getting the other information is interesting. But Mowery's name is on stuff that Payne's signature is on. How many other cases are they doing this kind of like careless shit that like just don't get looked at because it's not like a big, widely publicized case? But yeah, I think that's the biggest part, that they're going to have to explain how 9 days prior to them seeing the Apple device in the shared location in Pennsylvania, they have a letter going out from the feds. Maybe trial. They'll explain it. I guess we'll find out. Yeah, more questions. But yeah, that's it. I'm gonna probably put something out tomorrow, and that's probably gonna be where we start doing smaller subject-based, just quick to the point videos, because I know that there's so much hours of this, and a lot of you guys are used to me doing like the shorter summarization ones. So that's what I'm going to be working on tomorrow. I don't know if it's going to be out tomorrow night or if it might be like a Monday release. It just really all depends, because I'm going to try to get like all of the pinpoints without having to like put too much detail into it. Because for the most part, you guys know all this stuff. But then I also have to remember that even though you guys might know what the hell I'm talking about, it might be hitting a crap ton of new people that have no clue. And if I don't come at it with all of the details from the beginning, that it might not really catch people the way that it's supposed to, if you know what I mean. Like they might not understand it because it sounds like it's like just half the information. But yeah, I'm glad we went through all this because we learned a bunch. Yeah, yeah, Mikey. Yeah, the blood on the railing thing really bothers the crap out of me because they stopped doing any testing. They stopped doing any testing, any further testing, and I don't see how they could be so gung-ho on touch DNA and then just like not bother whatsoever with the rest of it. And if we're at this point where they're telling us over 2 years in that this is still unknown male D, that's number 4, and we're this far in and you haven't even bothered, but then we have to think back to what? Delphi. They had hairs in Delphi that they didn't even bother testing until trial started. How? How do you get to that point? How do you have something like that and not even bother testing it? That's why whenever we find out this far, they have 4 unknown males. I'm like, how do you just allow that? And then now hearing that Dylan was texting, again, how I'm interpreting it, and that's why I'm going to play exactly the way that Jennings stated this in the video when we're talking about this. But for her to say, now there's like proof in text communication that it's not real, the way that the defense is trying to play, that it's not real what Dylan saw because she was inebriated and she doesn't know for sure if what she heard or saw was real and it's in her own words. I understand that. But then Jennings is saying, but then we have text communication in real time of her describing, I'm guessing, the stair situation and hearing the crying from the bathroom, making it more real, making it a real situation. Not something that's just technically being fabricated, but she's talking most likely to Bethany about it in real time. In real time. So how do you have that and then have blood on the stair rail where the victim was apparently running up and down and you don't bother to test it further than to know it's a dude? And I don't know if that means that it's unknown because they didn't go past it being male, or if they actually did try to do a comparison to see if it matched Ethan or if it matched Bryan after they arrested him. Because as far as we can tell in the Delphi case, like I've mentioned for thousands of times now that we have found this information out, underneath the fingernails and on a thigh of minor little girls who lost their lives are 2 separate DNA samples that remain unknown. Unidentified. How? How? I don't understand it. I really just don't. But I'm going to go ahead and get off of here and try to unwind and go watch some TV with the kids before we go to bed. So much information. Thank you for the super stickers and the super chats and everybody that was in here and everybody that joined and everyone who gifted memberships. Everyone is amazing and thank you so much. I'm so tired, but I'm glad that we finally got all of this discussed in real time and we can start wrapping it down. You guys have a great night. If y'all are going to be doing something crazy because it's Saturday, I know some of you don't even go out until sometime after 10 o'clock because y'all like to make an entrance. If y'all are them types that go out on Saturdays, please be super careful. Have a great time, but be super careful. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you come back to this and you changed your mind on something, or you maybe heard something that maybe we missed, please let me know. But that's it. See y'all.